Chapter 3490. Duan Tian did not expect Tathagata would be here as well. However, when he thought about Tathagata's identity, he felt relieved. Since they had advanced to the fourth round of the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses, it was only natural that the Title Temple would send people to maintain order and verify their identities. Gentlemen, as long as your identities are verified by the Title Temple, the people from the heavenly palace of the primeval heaven will bring you to the primeval precipice. A disciple from the heavenly palace of the primeval heaven, who led Duan Tian and the others here, said to Duan Tian and the others. Just as Duan Tian had expected, Tathagata was here to verify their identities. However, Duan Tian was puzzled. Why would Tathagata, the palace master of a Title Temple's branch of the Title Temple, be here to verify their identities? When Duan Tian recalled how Tathagata had targeted him earlier, he quickly sent a message to his master, Feng Qingyang. Master, I'm preparing to enter the primeval precipice. The people in charge of verifying the identities of those who enter the primeval precipice are led by Tathagata, the palace master of a Title Temple's branch of the Title Temple. I find it strange that a palace master of a Title Temple would personally come here. Normally, a vice palace master of a Title Temple would be able to handle this. Duan Tian voiced his concerns. Previously, Tathagata dared to probe him in front of his master, Feng Qingyang. Now that his master was not around, there was no telling what Tathagata would do. However, he did not know why Tathagata was targeting him. Could it be because he had successfully cultivated the flaming yellow physique? In any case, for safety reasons, Duan Tian had informed his master, Feng Qingyang, about this. Based on his master's relationship with Ding Fu, the heavenly emperor of the primeval heaven, it should not be difficult for him to enter the primeval precipice. It was just as Duan Tian had thought. Almost as soon as he sent the message, his master, Feng Qingyang, went to look for Ding Fu, the heavenly emperor of the primeval heaven. Ding Fu, the heavenly emperor of the primeval heaven, was the one who allowed the 100 participants to enter the primeval precipice. To Ding Fu, the heavenly palace of the primeval heaven was his home, and the primeval precipice was his backyard. Originally, Duan Tian thought that if he wanted to enter the primordial precipice, it would not be so smooth. Perhaps Tathagata would make things difficult for him. But to his surprise, Tathagata let him in directly without any intention of making things difficult for him. Could it be that he wants to do something inside? Duan Tian thought to himself. Before entering the primeval precipice, he sent a message to his master. Then, he entered the primeval precipice with Su Li Lingjuyan and Tang Sanpao. The primeval precipice was located on a steep cliff surrounded by clouds and mist. To get close to it, one had to have someone from the heavenly palace of the primeval heaven open a gap in the formation. Without someone from the heavenly palace of the primeval heaven, even a god would not be able to enter. After all, the formation was set up by the first heavenly emperor of the primeval heaven. Moreover, when he set up the formation, he had been a god for many years and was considered a powerhouse among gods. As soon as Duan Tian entered the formation, his eyes lit up. The clouds and mist had completely disappeared, and a natural gigantic mountain peak appeared in front of them. The mountain was lush with greenery, birds chirping, and flowers blooming. They're up there, Tang Sanpao said as he looked up at the sky. Duan Tian, Su Li, and Su Li followed his gaze and saw familiar figures at the top of the mountain. Since they were too far away, they looked like tiny black dots in the sky. Almost everyone is here. When Duan Tian arrived near the primeval precipice, he discovered there were already 70 to 80 people gathered here. Many of them were injured during the last stage of the fourth round of the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses. However, even though they were injured, they still managed to make it here. Duan Tian could understand why they were so stubborn. Although these people were injured, this was a rare opportunity to enter the primeval precipice. Perhaps they would be able to gain some insights and improve their strength. Perhaps they would be able to achieve better results in the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses. The laws contained in the primeval precipice are all in different places. Let's split up and look for them. After Duanling Tian's group arrived at the primeval precipice, they noticed this problem. Suli frowned as he spoke. All right. Duanling Tian, and the others nodded. Duanling Tian. A familiar voice rang in the air when Duanling Tian was about to search for the primeval precipice that contained the law of space. Duanling Tian instinctively looked in the direction of the voice and saw a familiar face. Yu Dongfang. It was none other than Yu Dongfang, the third true disciple of the Heavenly Emperor of the Xianyuan Heavenly Palace. Duanling Tian, you're stronger than I thought. Yu Dongfang approached Duanling Tian and said with a smile, I didn't expect you to possess the strength of a 5-star god of war when you're only slightly over 600 years old. When I was your age, I'm afraid you could easily defeat me. Duanling Tian smiled faintly. You're quite strong as well. You're still hiding your strength. You're at least a 5-star god of war, right? Yu Dongfang smiled and said, I look forward to our duel. All right. Duanling Tian nodded and said, I still have to look for the primeval precipice that contains the law of space, so I won't chat with you any longer. All right, Yu Dongfang replied and left. He was also looking for the primeval precipice that contained the law of space that he was skilled in. At the peak of the giant mountain, the primordial precipice wasn't all together. Each primordial precipice could only allow one person to comprehend the primordial precipice. If someone was on a primordial precipice, as long as someone's consciousness touched it, the others couldn't explore that primordial precipice. Along the way, Duanling Tian had also sensed the fluctuation of the law of space on the primeval precipice. However, there were already people on the primeval precipice. Although the law of space was one of the 4 supreme laws, and there were not many people who had comprehended it, the participants of the Battle of Geniuses this time were the most outstanding young geniuses under the age of 1,000 in the Devata realms. In particular, there was only one person in each Devata realm who was qualified to enter the Battle of Geniuses. Over there. After a while, Duanling Tian sensed the fluctuation of the law of space again. Then, he saw a primeval precipice that was devoid of people. He quickly moved over and occupied the primeval precipice. After observing his surroundings, it was not difficult to see a few people in front of the primeval precipice. The primordial precipice was actually a special precipice in front of the cliff. It was sparkling and translucent, and there was a special power pulsing within it. One could vaguely see some light on its surface. For example, the primeval precipice that Duanling Tian was standing on was emitting a faint gray light. This was the color that appeared when one merged the law of space's space elemental profundity with one's celestial origin energy. I can comprehend the law of space just by using my divine consciousness? With this thought in mind, Duanling Tian divided a portion of his divine consciousness and merged it with the primeval precipice. The other portion of his divine consciousness remained vigilant of his surroundings. Moments later, after Duanling Tian's divine consciousness entered the primordial precipice, an image appeared in his mind. An old woman in green was fighting with a burly middle-aged man. The middle-aged man was skilled in the law of earth. His entire body was airtight, and it was difficult to injure him. However, in front of the middle-aged man who was skilled in defense, the green-clad old woman merely raised her hand, and 9 spatial rifts appeared around the middle-aged man. 9 cross-dimensional /profundity appeared and shot toward the middle-aged man. Bang! 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 In the beginning, the middle-aged man managed to block the old woman's attack. However, the old woman's figure flickered and turned into nothingness. Then the 9-dimensional attacks fused together with the much dimmer spatial light. The moment the old woman appeared behind the middle-aged man, she grabbed the condensed attack in her hand and slashed at the middle-aged man's head. Swoosh! Bursts of earthy yellow light appeared around the middle-aged man's neck, forming an airtight defense. Even then it was useless. Buzz! Although the old woman's attack could not penetrate the middle-aged man's defenses, it was still able to cut through the middle-aged man's defenses. In the end, it successfully severed the middle-aged man's head. Fusion of four profundities. It's the fusion of the law of space's transportation profundity, teleportation profundity, cross-dimensional / profundity, and distortion profundity. After all, even among the heavenly emperors in the Devata realms, there were very few people who could comprehend the fusion of four profundities from a law. Once one comprehended the fusion of four profundities from a law, even if one was not a divine beast or a mutant, one would still be able to become an 8-star god of war. If one had mastered the fusion of profundities from a law, one would have the strength of a 9-star god of war. Swoosh! After the old woman killed the middle-aged man, the scene in Duan Lingtian's mind changed to the scene above a lake. It was still the old woman, but her opponent had changed. In the end, the old woman still managed to kill her opponent. Swoosh! 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 The changes in the images allowed Duan Lingtian to gain a deeper understanding of the old woman's technique. The primordial precipice is really a good place. Multiple battles with the same person are equivalent to multiple floating image pearls that record the same person's battle. The value of a set of floating image pearls is comparable to an ordinary emperor-grade celestial weapon. Duan Lingtian sighed inwardly. Chapter 3491. Duan Lingtian sighed as he stood in front of the primordial precipice. After Duan Lingtian entered the primordial precipice, Tathagata, the hall master of the tidal temple's Xian Yuantian Heaven Hall, did not personally verify Duan Lingtian's identity. After all, other people could do the same. How confident are you? A figure stood near the primordial precipice. Even the people from the heavenly palace of the primordial heaven did not notice him. At this moment, he was looking at Tathagata, the hall master of the tidal temple's Xian Yuantian Heaven Hall. Don't worry, Vice Hall Master Su. I'm 90% confident. Tathagata replied confidently. You're not 100% confident. The person standing in front of Tathagata was none other than Su Konghai, the Vice Hall Master of the tidal temple's main hall. Tathagata was the one who had planned this. However, Tathagata had invited him to oversee the situation in case Feng Qingyang arrived too early and delayed his plan. He needed more time. For this reason, Tathagata had invited Su Konghai here in hopes that Su Konghai would be able to delay Feng Qingyang at the critical moment. This was to prevent Feng Qingyang from arriving too quickly and ruining his plan. Naturally, Tathagata would not tell Su Konghai that he was planning to possess Duan Lingtian. Moreover, Su Konghai was unaware that Tathagata's body was currently being controlled by Yahiko from the undead world. Yahiko was very cunning. He knew the tidal temple would not let go of Duan Lingtian, who had mastered 2 of the 4 Daos of heaven and earth so easily. For this reason, he had told Su Konghai that he would capture Duan Lingtian and send him to the main hall. In fact, he had already made up his mind. As long as he could successfully abduct Duan Lingtian, he would find a place where no one could find him. After 100 years, his divine soul would recover, and he would possess Duan Lingtian. Then, he would release Tathagata to bear the brunt of the tidal temple's wrath. As for Feng Qingyang's anger, it was difficult for him to transfer it to Tathagata. He knew this very well. Feng Qingyang and the heavenly emperor of Xianyuan heaven, Gongsun Xianyuan, were old friends, so he believed Gongsun Xuanyuan's words. Gongsun Xianyuan also knew that Yahiko had taken control of Tathagata's body. On the other hand, the tidal temple would not believe Gongsun Xuanyuan's words so easily. Even if they did, they would not give up so easily. Actually, I'm 100% sure. But there's always the possibility of an accident, so I can't be too sure. Seeing that Su Konghai was frowning with dissatisfaction, the Buddha, or Master Yahiko, narrowed his eyes and said with a smile, Yes. Su Konghai nodded. Prepare yourself, and make a move as soon as possible. As you said, Feng Qingyang left a divine soul imprint on Duan Lingtian. If you make a move on him, Feng Qingyang will know immediately and rush over. Understood. Master Yahiko nodded before he left. He immediately went to look for the elder of the primordial heaven, who was in charge of controlling the primordial precipice formation. I would like to enter the primordial precipice formation. The elder of the primordial heaven frowned when he saw Master Yahiko. He said hesitantly, "Temple Master Tathagata, the primordial heaven's heavenly emperor palace has only agreed to allow 100 young geniuses to enter the primordial precipice formation. I'm afraid you can't enter." Tathagata was not surprised to hear the elder's words. He smiled faintly and said, "Elder, I'd like to enter the primordial precipice formation to take a look at my disciples. I want to see if I can give them some pointers while they're comprehending the primordial precipice formation. Can you do me a favor?" Tathagata said as he took out a ferrule from his spatial ring. "This ferrule is an emperor-grade celestial weapon that I used in the past. Although its artifact spirit is injured, and it'll take many years to recover, we Celestials don't lack time. If you're willing to do me a favor, this ferrule will belong to you. What do you think?" A bright smile appeared on Tathagata's face when he finished speaking. The elder of the primordial heaven's heavenly palace's eyes lit up when he heard Tathagata's words. However, he said warily, "Temple Master Tathagata, I'm afraid you don't just want to enter the primordial precipice formation to give pointers to your disciples, right? An emperor-grade celestial weapon with an artifact spirit. Even if the artifact spirit was injured, and it would take many years to recover, Tathagata was right. I like to talk to smart people." Tathagata smiled. "Does it matter to you what I do in the primordial precipice formation? If something happens, you can just say that I forced you to enter the primordial heaven's heavenly palace. Even if you can't handle it, don't tell me an emperor-grade celestial weapon isn't enough for you to leave the heavenly palace of the primordial heaven and escape punishment." Tathagata asked. On Tathagata's face, there was also a victorious smile. He did not think Tathagata would refuse. An emperor-grade celestial weapon with an artifact spirit was extremely tempting to an ordinary titled celestial emperor. It was worth it even if he had to betray the heavenly palace of a Devata realm. The elder of the heavenly palace of the primordial heaven's expression changed several times before he finally accepted the ferrule. "Thank you, Temple Master Tathagata." As soon as he finished speaking, the elder of the heavenly palace of the primordial heaven opened the formation and allowed Tathagata to enter. "Temple Master Tathagata, please enter." "All right." Tathagata nodded. A hint of greed could be seen in the depths of his eyes as he flew into the primordial precipice. It was as though there were precious treasures waiting for him inside the primordial precipice. After entering the primordial precipice, Tathagata concealed himself so that no one would be alerted. Not long after, he found traces of his target this time. A handsome young man in a purple robe with sword-like eyebrows and bright eyes stood in front of a primitive precipice, comprehending the law marks left behind on the precipice. The faint aura of the law of space spread out from the precipice. "This body is much stronger than mine." The greed in Tathagata's eyes surged. He waved his hand, and in an instant, 36 golden beads flew out. They floated in the air in a very orderly manner, forming some kind of resonance with each other. Swoosh! Thus a formation was set up. Duan Lingtian, who was comprehending the primordial precipice, sensed something amiss with his divine consciousness, and quickly regained his senses. With just a glance, he saw the formation that enveloped him and a large space around him. There was also a familiar figure. Tathagata, the hall master of the tidal temple's Xian Yuantian branch temple. Hall Master Tathagata? Duan Lingtian turned around and looked at Tathagata with a grave expression. "Why are you here?" "I'm here for you." Tathagata stared at Duan Lingtian with shining eyes. He was like a wolf that had not eaten for a long time and was drooling over Duan Lingtian. "I want to know, why are you targeting me?" Duan Lingtian asked bluntly. This was something that had been bothering him for a long time. "Targeting you?" Tathagata was stunned for a moment before he shook his head. "No, you're wrong. I'm not targeting you. I'm just interested in your body. In your comprehension of the four Taos of heaven and earth." As his voice fell, the greed in Tathagata's eyes, or more accurately, in Master Yahiko's eyes, was undisguised. "You want to possess me?" Duan Lingtian narrowed his eyes. He finally understood why Tathagata dared to probe him in front of his master, when he knew he had the flaming yellow physique. It turned out that he wanted to possess him. Yes, Yahiko answered again. However, because my soul was injured by your master Feng Qingyang, I have to wait for 100 years before I can possess you. For the next 100 years, I will imprison you in my small world. I know you have Feng Qingyang's soul imprint on you. However, even if his soul imprint is here, he won't be able to save you this time. Master Yahiko took a step forward and said coldly, I know you have Feng Qingyang's soul imprint. I will destroy his soul imprint, so that at most he will know that his soul imprint was destroyed here. But he won't know who destroyed it. By the time he comes, I will have already left. Yahiko smiled brightly. In the future, when I possess your body and master 2 of the 4 Taoists of heaven and earth, coupled with my own means, once I become a god, I will use your body to kill Feng Qingyang. That scene will be wonderful. I'm looking forward to it. Yahiko's eyes flashed. Now, I will destroy the soul imprint Feng Qingyang left on you and imprison you. If you don't want to suffer, you'd better cooperate. As soon as Master Miyan's voice fell, the spirit array that enveloped the area suddenly activated, and from his body, waves of extremely terrifying oppressive force swept out. The formation was used to prevent the soul imprint Feng Qingyang left on Duan Tian from transmitting information to the outside world. As long as the information was not transmitted, Feng Qingyang could only sense where his soul imprint was destroyed, but not what happened. He did not want to expose himself for the time being. However, Duan Tian remained calm as he faced Yahiko. Thank you for answering my question. Duan Tian's calmness was beyond Yahiko's expectations. At the same time, he could not help but have a bad feeling about this. Almost at the same time, he felt an ominous premonition. Whoosh! The ear-piercing sound of a sword whistling in the air was earth-shattering. Then the 36 dazzling pearls that formed the formation shattered, and the formation was destroyed. In the next moment, a figure appeared next to Duan Tian. His gaze was as sharp as a sword as he stared at Miyan. Naturally, whether it was Duan Tian or Feng Qingyang, who had just appeared next to Duan Tian, Yahiko was none other than Tathagata, the hall master of the title temple's Xian Yuantian subtemple. Chapter 3492. Feng Qingyang. Yahiko's expression changed drastically when he saw Feng Qingyang. He could not figure out how Feng Qingyang managed to arrive so quickly. After all, he did not even have the time to remove the soul imprint that Duan Tian had left on Duan Tian. Could it be that Feng Qingyang had been protecting Duan Tian all this while? Duan Tian was merely a true disciple. No matter how outstanding Duan Tian was, it was impossible for him, the heavenly emperor of the solitary destructive heaven, to sacrifice his time and freedom to protect Duan Tian. You, why are you here? Yahiko's expression was unsightly. Fear could be heard in his voice when he spoke. If I wasn't here, I'm afraid you would have succeeded, right? Feng Qingyang took a deep look at Guru Mihia. He had arrived a long time ago, so he had heard everything Guru Mihia said. Naturally, he did not know who Guru Mihia was. He only thought that Guru Mihia was Tathagata. Yahiko snorted coldly. His expression was unsightly as he prepared to flee. However, in front of the well-prepared Feng Qingyang, how could he run away so easily? Since you're here, why don't you stay? As soon as Feng Qingyang spoke, khaki-colored sword rays flashed in the air and formed a huge cage that trapped Yahiko. Facing Feng Qingyang's attack, Lord Mihiko's expression turned solemn. However, he was also a god. Even though he was facing a powerful enemy, he didn't panic. He raised his hand, and the kasaya on his body swelled up. Then he turned into a ray of golden light and flew out. He wanted to open a path and escape. Yahiko did not have any techniques to fight Feng Qingyang. If he was at his peak, he would not be afraid of Feng Qingyang. However, the problem was, not long ago, his divine soul had been injured by Feng Qingyang, which greatly affected his strength. Now even a person who had just become a god could probably beat him. Under such circumstances, unless he was an idiot, it was absolutely impossible for him to face Feng Qingyang head-on. What a strong power! When Master Mihiko made his move, Duan Tian could clearly feel the power contained in that golden light. If it fell on him, he was afraid that he would die without a doubt even if he used all his skills. However, he soon saw that such a terrifying power was easily blocked by his master, Feng Qingyang. Even Master Yahiko couldn't break through the cage formed by the sword light. Boom! Rumble! A series of earth-shattering noises spread out in a timely manner, attracting the attention of everyone within the primitive precipice. Only the people outside the primitive precipice were unable to detect the abnormality due to the isolation of the formation from the outside world. It didn't take long for all the young geniuses to gather at the place where Feng Qingyang trapped Yahiko. Nearly 100 young geniuses had gathered at the same place. Su Li Lingjuan and Tang Sanpao were all present. Zhong Guiyu and Yu Dongfang were also present. It's Tathagata, the Hall Master of the Title Temple Xianyuan Heaven Branch. Hall Master Tathagata, the Great Sun Celestial Emperor, is actually trapped by the Wind Heavenly Emperor? The Wind Heavenly Emperor is so powerful. Didn't Hall Master Tathagata say he's going to fight the Wind Heavenly Emperor in the Heavenly Palace of the Solitary Destructive Heaven? He's so weak. But he still dares to challenge the Wind Heavenly Emperor? The group of young geniuses recognized Duan Lingtian, Feng Qingyang, and Tathagata, who was trapped by Feng Qingyang's technique. Lord Heavenly Emperor. Many of the young prodigies were nurtured by the Title Temple. They stepped forward and bowed at Feng Qingyang before they asked, "May I know how our Title Temple Master Rulai has offended you? Lord Heavenly Emperor, please have mercy on us." Duan Lingtian could not help but marvel at the Title Temple's strength. Among the nearly 100 young geniuses who stood out in the Devata realms, more than a dozen of them were from the Title Temple, let alone heaven-grade forces. Even the heavenly palaces in the Devata realms would not be able to produce more than 2 geniuses who could make it to the 5th round of the Devata realms Battle of Geniuses. However, Feng Qingyang ignored the young geniuses from the Title Temple who stepped forward. His eyes were fixed on Tathagata as he said indifferently, "Tathagata, you'll be the second god Feng Qingyang kill." The second god he killed. Upon hearing Feng Qingyang's words, not only were the young geniuses shocked, but even Duan Lingtian was shocked as well. Based on his master's words, Duan Lingtian had killed a god before? "Feng Qingyang, if you kill me, the Title Temple won't let you go easily." Yahiko, who had taken control of Tathagata's body, said in a deep voice. He knew he was no match for Feng Qingyang since his soul was injured. Moreover, it would be difficult for him to escape from Feng Qingyang. He had used all his strength earlier, but he was still unable to escape from Feng Qingyang's attack. In the face of death, he had brought up the Title Temple's name. "Tathagata, you want to possess my disciple, Duan Lingtian's body? I'm curious if the Title Temple will care about the enmity between you and me. However, if the Title Temple insists, I, Feng Qingyang, don't mind visiting the Title Temple's branch palaces in the Devata realms." Feng Qingyang said indifferently. In the history of the Devata realms, there have been cases where the Title Temple's branch palaces were destroyed, and the people in the branch palaces were killed. "Feng Qingyang, do you want to compete with that person from back then?" Yahiko sneered. "I'm afraid you're not qualified to compete with him. The Title Temple is free to see if I'm qualified or not." Feng Qingyang said indifferently. "Naturally, you won't have the chance to see him." As soon as Feng Qingyang finished speaking, a yellow light swept out from his body. It was as if a majestic energy had swept out from his body. In the midst of this terrifying energy, sword rays filled the sky, as if they were about to destroy the heavens and earth. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. The sword chi broke through the void and rushed towards Yahiko. During this process, a series of space cracks appeared in the void, looking ferocious and terrifying. This technique was different from the one Duan Lingtian had used during the Battle of the Geniuses in the Devata realms. When Duan Lingtian attacked, although spatial tears followed him like a shadow, they were caused by the law of space. However, Feng Qingyang had used his own technique to tear the space apart. In the Devata realms, only god-level powerhouses were capable of such a feat. Even a titled celestial emperor, with the strength of a 9-star god of war, could not do such a thing. Swoosh, swoosh. Facing Feng Qingyang's attack, Yahiko naturally couldn't just sit there and wait for his death. With a serious expression on his face, his monastic robe expanded again. When he waved it, two gigantic blades of light shot out. A series of sizzling sounds could be heard in the void, and then a series of ferocious spatial rifts appeared out of thin air. Needless to say, the spatial rifts were not as wide as the spatial rifts created by Feng Qingyang's attack. In just a blink of an eye, both of their techniques collided. In just a blink of an eye, everything was calm. However, this was without a doubt the calm before the storm. After a short stalemate, the attacks of the two finally erupted. An incomparably bright light was emitted, and a frightening pressure caused the expressions of the group of young geniuses present to change. They hurriedly flew backwards, deeply afraid that they would be caught in the crossfire. Boom! A loud explosion rang in the air as though heaven and earth were falling apart. Then silence reigned. Of course, it was not truly silent. There was still a slight sound of air being torn apart, as well as the sound of space being torn apart. Under the watchful eyes of the others, Feng Qingyang's attack destroyed Tathagata's attack, and tore the space apart as it flew toward Yahiko. As Yahiko tried to dodge the attack, Feng Qingyang's attack left many wounds on his body. One had to admit that Yahiko's technique was brilliant. When Feng Qingyang's attack landed, Yahiko managed to avoid being fatally injured. Feng Qingyang, if you dare to kill me, not only you, but your disciples and those who are related to you in the heavenly palace of the solitary destructive heaven will also be doomed. My elder brother is a god king. As Lord Yahiko's injuries continued to increase, his speed slowed down and his aura weakened. He finally spoke again in a flustered tone. He even mentioned his elder brother, and said that his elder brother was a divine king expert. However, Feng Qingyang's expression remained unchanged, as though he did not hear Yahiko's words at all. A threat? If he, Feng Qingyang, was afraid of threats, he would not have survived to this day, regardless of whether Yahiko was telling the truth or not. So what if Yahiko was telling the truth? Yahiko was only a god king. Feng Qingyang's true body was only a stone's throw away from breaking through to the god king realm. Kill. Feng Qingyang's eyes flashed with killing intent. It was clear he had no intention of sparing Yahiko's life. Master! Duan Lingtian called out to Feng Qingyang when he was about to kill Yahiko. At this moment, the only person who could stop Feng Qingyang was Duan Lingtian. Master! Yu Dongfang sent me a voice transmission earlier, and asked me to plead for mercy on behalf of Gongsun Xianyuan. He said the heavenly emperor of the heavenly heaven, Gongsun Xianyuan, is willing to repay the favor I promised him. Duan Lingtian said. Although he had survived back then, it was not because Gongsun Xianyuan and the others wanted to save him. However, it was because of Gongsun Xianyuan, Yu Haoyan, and Gongsun Xuanyuan's actions that he was able to reincarnate. Otherwise, he would have died on Earth a long time ago. Because of this, when Gongsun Xianyuan asked him for a favor, he agreed, because they had indeed indirectly saved his life. He had to repay the favor no matter what. If he didn't report it, his mind wouldn't be clear, and it would negatively affect his cultivation. Of course, Master, if you insist on killing him, there's nothing I can do. I can only return the favor to Heavenly Emperor Xianyuan elsewhere, Duan Lingtian added. Chapter 3493. Yu Dongfang had spoken to Duan Lingtian through voice transmission. At this moment, Duan Lingtian had spoken, and everyone present on the scene could hear his words. Duan Lingtian. Yu Dongfang's expression changed drastically. He did not expect Duan Lingtian to do something like this. It was true that Duan Lingtian had promised to return the favor to his master. However, based on what Duan Lingtian had said, the heavenly emperor of the solitary destructive heaven, Feng Qingyang, could have ignored Duan Lingtian's words and killed Duan Lingtian. Indeed, if Feng Qingyang insisted on killing Duan Lingtian, Duan Lingtian would not be able to stop him from killing Duan Lingtian. However, based on Duan Lingtian's words, it was as though he was implying that his master could kill him if he wanted to. There was no need for him to listen to him. Was this not a hint to his master that he could kill Feng Qingyang? I'm sure Gongsun Xianyuan had asked you for a favor just for this. Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, Feng Qingyang smiled faintly and said, perhaps he knew something like this would happen, so he had a backup plan. Feng Qingyang's words reminded Duan Lingtian of something. Indeed, why would Gongsun Xianyuan, the heavenly emperor of the Xianyuan heaven, suddenly ask him for a favor? Moreover, it was only after Gongsun Xianyuan had used his divine consciousness to spy on him. If all of this was just a coincidence, it would be too much of a coincidence. Based on what had happened today and what his master had said, he realized that everything was closely related. Heavenly Emperor Gongsun Xianyuan of the Heavenly Emperor of the Xianyuan Heavenly Emperor must have guessed that something like this would happen, which was why he had asked for a favor from him. At this moment, Duan Lingtian had a feeling as though he had fallen into a trap. He was furious after being duped. After all, if his master had not arrived first, he would not have been able to contend against Tathagata with his strength, even if he used all his means. Master, if you insist on killing him, I won't be able to change anything even though I'm your direct disciple. I've never heard of a disciple being able to easily change their master's mind. Duan Lingtian's eyes were filled with killing intent, and his voice turned cold. After all, he was almost consigned to eternal damnation today. Forget it, Feng Qingyang said indifferently. Since you promised Gongsun Xianyuan to do him a favor, I'll help you return this favor today. In this world, a debt of gratitude is the most difficult debt to repay. If you can repay it earlier, it's better to do so earlier. Almost as soon as he finished speaking, Feng Qingyang removed the sword-light prison that was targeting Buddha Gautama, or Lord Yehiko. It was also a technique that was created by combining the profound meaning of the law of earth with the destruction sword Tao. Tathagata, if there is a next time, I will not hold back. Feng Qingyang said indifferently. Buddha Gautama, whose consciousness was controlled by Lord Yehiko, looked at Feng Qingyang coldly and said, Feng Qingyang, I won't forget what happened today. 100 years later, I'll go to the heavenly palace of the solitary destructive heaven as promised and fight you to the death. Master Yehiko's best technique relied on his divine soul. Previously, his soul was severely injured by Feng Qingyang, causing his strength to be greatly reduced. Currently, he could not even unleash half of his full strength. For this reason, he felt extremely frustrated when he was suppressed by Feng Qingyang. He could not wait to fight Feng Qingyang to regain his full strength. I'll be waiting. Feng Qingyang's expression was as calm as ever when he heard Lord Yehiko's challenge. His tone was indifferent, as though he had just agreed to something insignificant. Yehiko coldly snorted, turned around and flew away. As for the remaining group of young geniuses, other than those who were familiar with Duan Lingtian, the rest left one after another. Yu Dongfang, the third true disciple of Gongsun Xianyuan, the heavenly emperor of Xianyuan of the heavenly emperor of Xianyuan, gave Duan Lingtian a meaningful look before he left. When he sensed Yu Dongfang's gaze, Duan Lingtian looked over and met his gaze. At this moment, Yu Dongfang's voice rang in Duan Lingtian's ears. Duan Lingtian, you've gone too far today. If I meet you in the Devata realm's battle of the geniuses, I won't show you any mercy. Yu Dongfang's sound transmission caused Duan Lingtian to be stunned for a moment, before he couldn't help but laugh. Show mercy? I'm really sorry. I'm afraid you don't have the ability to hold back in front of me. Duan Lingtian replied bluntly. Yu Dongfang, you don't have the ability to hold back in front of me, Duan Lingtian. Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, Yu Dongfang looked at him meaningfully before he turned around and left without saying anything else. He would wait until they met in the Devata realm's battle of the geniuses. Duan Lingtian, Tathagata, the palace master of Xianyuan Heaven's sub-palace of the Tidal Temple, wanted to possess you? Su Li and the others greeted Feng Qingyang before they turned to look at Duan Lingtian with a grave expression on their faces. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded and smiled faintly. However, it's all in the past now. It's said that Palace Master Tathagata has cultivated the Buddhist golden body and has mastered the infinite Tao of the heaven and earth Tao. Why would he want to possess you? What's his motive? Tang Sampao asked in bewilderment. Before my master appeared, He told me that after he possesses me, he'll be able to master 2 of the heaven and earth Tao that I've mastered. Perhaps he has a way to extract my soul's comprehension of the heaven and earth Tao. A hint of fear flashed in Duan Lingtian's eyes when he recalled Tathagata's words. What? He can extract your soul's comprehension of the heaven and earth Tao? Heavens! What kind of technique is that? Is there such a secret technique in this world? Tang Sanpao cried out in shock. His voice was filled with shock and disbelief. This had overturned his understanding of the word possession. Wasn't possession just taking over another person's body? Since when, apart from possessing a person's body, one could also possess the comprehension of the 4 Taos of heaven and earth in his soul. If one could do that, did it mean one could also possess another person's comprehension of the profundities of Allah? Duan Lingtian, is that Tathagata really a human? A human from the mundane realm? Ling Juyin asked with a slight frown on his face as he looked at Duan Lingtian. He should be a human. Duan Lingtian nodded. As for whether he's from the mundane realm, I'm certain he's from the same mundane realm as Gongsun Xianyuan, the heavenly emperor of the Xianyuan heaven, and Yu Hao Tian, the heavenly emperor of the Jade Emperor heaven. The speed plane can be considered another of my homeworlds. There's no doubt about that. Duan Lingtian nodded confidently. Now that Duan Lingtian had met so many people from the ancient myths and legends on Earth, he realized many of them were true. Tathagata is a human. At this moment, Feng Qingyang chimed in. 2,000 years ago, I was sent by Gongsun Xianyuan to a god's ruin with him, and Yu Hao Tian. Only humans can enter that place. That doesn't make sense, Ling Juyin said with a frown on his face. According to the notes left behind by a supreme powerhouse in my clan, there's only one race in this world. They only have one chance to possess another person's body. Apart from possessing the person's body, they can also steal the person's comprehension of the laws and the 4 Tao of heaven and earth. Ling Juyin said. A note left behind by a supreme powerhouse? Upon hearing Ling Juyin's words, Su Li and Tang Sanpao looked at him in shock. They did not know about Ling Juyin's origin. All they knew was that Ling Juyin was Duan Lingtian's friend. However, since Duan Lingtian had told him about Ling Juyin's origin, Feng Qingyang was not surprised by Ling Juyin's words. After all, it was normal for a large clan in a realm of gods to have a note left behind by a supreme powerhouse. Even in the Devata realms, there were a few heaven-grade forces that had notes left behind by their supreme powerhouses. Putting aside the other heaven-grade forces, the Qilin clan definitely had one. What race? Duan Lingtian asked. The Dead Spirit clan. Ling Juyin replied. The Dead Spirit clan? Upon hearing Ling Juyin's words, Feng Qingyang narrowed his eyes slightly. Isn't the Dead Spirit clan from the Netherworld? Moreover, it's said that the members of the Dead Spirit clan can't leave the Netherworld unless they become gods. That's right. Ling Juyin nodded. Indeed, the members of the Dead Spirit clan can't leave the Netherworld before they become gods. They can't leave the Netherworld on their own, possess someone else, or even live in someone else's body. Before they become gods, they have to rely on the special energy in the Netherworld to replenish their bodies. Without the special energy, it won't take long for them to turn into ashes. Only God-level members of the Dead Spirit clan are able to leave the Netherworld. The Netherworld. Duan Lingtian had heard of this place before. He knew it was one of the 7 deadliest places in the Devata realms. It was as famous as the Azura Hell. However, in terms of danger, it was far less dangerous than the Azura Hell. It was said that those below the level of gods would definitely die if they entered the Azura Hell. As for the Netherworld, many powerful titled celestial emperors had survived after entering the Netherworld. Therefore, it was not as dangerous as the Azura Hell. However, it was said that even gods would die if they acted recklessly in the Netherworld. Is it possible that Tathagata is no longer the same as before? All of a sudden, Feng Qingyang seemed to have thought of something. His eyes narrowed again as he muttered to himself. No wonder I feel like he's a completely different person compared to his past self. In the past, Feng Qingyang had met Tathagata for a period of time. At that time, Tathagata was an eminent monk who had attained enlightenment. He had a good temper, was knowledgeable, and was gentle and refined. He gave off the feeling of a spring breeze. However, the current Tathagata gave off an inexplicable sense of ruthlessness. It was as though he was a completely different person. "Come with me to confirm something." Duan Lingtian and the others heard Feng Qingyang's words. Before they could react, Feng Qingyang had already brought Duan Lingtian with him and disappeared like a gust of wind. Chapter 3494. Master, where are we going? By the time Duan Lingtian regained his senses, his master Feng Qingyang had already brought him far away from the primordial precipice. The formation that enveloped the primordial precipice was only for outsiders. It was useless for those inside since they could leave at any time. For example, when Tathagata entered the primordial precipice, he needed the people from the heavenly palace of the primordial heaven to activate the formation. However, when he left the primordial precipice, he did not need to activate the formation at all. Did we succeed? After Tathagata left the primordial precipice, he immediately went to look for Su Konghai, the vice palace master of the main hall of the tidal temple. When Su Konghai saw Tathagata, his eyes lit up immediately. "You didn't alert Feng Qingyang?" Su Konghai had stayed outside to stop Feng Qingyang. However, until now, Feng Qingyang had yet to appear. "I failed." Tathagata, who was also honored Master Mi Yen, who had regained his composure, turned unsightly when he heard Su Konghai mentioning Feng Qingyang. "How did you fail? Didn't Feng Qingyang not come?" Su Konghai frowned. "Feng Qingyang might have entered the primordial precipice earlier than I did," honored Master Mi Yen said in a deep voice. "When I was about to attack Duan Lingtian, he appeared. My soul was injured by him previously, and my strength was greatly reduced. I was almost killed by him earlier. At the critical moment, it was Yu Dongfang, the true disciple of the heavenly emperor of the Yellow Arch of the heavenly heaven, who spoke up. He mentioned that Duan Lingtian had promised to do Gongsun Xianyuan a favor. Duan Lingtian spoke up, and that was why Feng Qingyang didn't kill me." Honored Master Mi Yin clenched his fists tightly as he spoke. A hint of humiliation could be seen in his eyes. "Feng Qingyang has been here for a long time?" Su Konghai's expression was grave when his plan had failed. He really values this disciple of his so much. Whenever there's even the slightest sign of trouble, he would always protect him. Looks like it won't be easy to kidnap Duan Lingtian. Both Su Konghai and honored Master Mi Yin thought Feng Qingyang had entered the primordial precipice. They were unaware that Feng Qingyang had entered the primordial precipice from the other side of the primordial precipice 15 minutes before Mi Yin appeared in front of Duan Lingtian. For this reason, Mi Yin was unaware of Feng Qingyang's arrival. Since the primordial precipice belonged to the heavenly palace of the primordial heaven, the heavenly emperor of the primordial heaven, Ding Fu, had no choice but to obey his orders. Moreover, Ding Fu had personally escorted Feng Qingyang to the primordial precipice. In fact, the elder from the primeval heavens emperor palace also informed Ding Fu about Lord Yahiko's actions. After all, Ding Fu had expected Yahiko to do this. For this reason, when Feng Qingyang had approached him, he had immediately sent a message to the heavenly emperor of the primordial precipice. If the heavenly emperor of the primordial heaven wanted to bribe the heavenly emperor of the primordial heaven, the heavenly emperor of the primordial heaven had to send a message to him. Moreover, he would not accept anything from the heavenly emperor of the primordial heaven. Naturally, the heavenly emperor of the primordial heaven was happy to see this. Not only would they not betray the heavenly emperor of the primordial heaven, but they would also be able to obtain treasures from the heavenly emperor of the primordial heaven. "Master, where are we going?" By the time Duan Lingtian regained his senses, Feng Qingyang had already led him away from the primordial precipice. "You'll know when we get there." Soon after, under Feng Qingyang's guidance, Duan Lingtian arrived at a spacious courtyard. When he saw the people inside, he immediately knew where he was. This was the residence of Gongsun Xianyuan, the heavenly emperor of the Xianyuan heavenly emperor. When Gongsun Xianyuan saw Feng Qingyang and Duan Lingtian, he immediately thanked them. "Thank you for showing mercy. He knew Tathagata had survived not only because of Duan Lingtian, but also because Feng Qingyang had shown mercy. If Feng Qingyang had insisted on killing Tathagata, Duan Lingtian would have been powerless. Gongsun Xianyuan, my disciple has returned the favor he owes you. These were the first words Feng Qingyang said to Gongsun Xianyuan. Yes, Gongsun Xianyuan smiled bitterly. He had asked for a favor from Duan Lingtian just in case. He didn't expect to use it so quickly. At the same time, he couldn't help but curse the person who had taken over Tathagata's body. What kind of idiot was he? Was the heavenly palace of the primordial heaven a place where he could make a move on Duan Lingtian? Didn't he know that the heavenly emperor of the primordial heaven, Ding Fu, was close friends with Duan Lingtian's master, Feng Qingyang? Feng Qingyang looked deeply at Gongsun Xianyuan and said directly, the current Tathagata is no longer the Tathagata of the past, right? Gongsun Xianyuan was taken aback. His eyes narrowed instinctively. Although he quickly regained his composure, Duan Lingtian and Feng Qingyang still managed to see the change in his expression. It seems like I guessed correctly, Feng Qingyang said calmly. If I'm not mistaken, the person in control of his body is a member of the dead spirit clan from the netherworld, right? You noticed? Gongsun Xianyuan didn't intend to admit it, but he was shocked when he heard Feng Qingyang's words. He didn't expect Feng Qingyang to be able to see through this. Tathagata should still be alive, I'm sure of that. However, that person's behavior is completely different from Tathagata's. Feng Qingyang continued, that dead spirit clan member must be after my disciple Duan Lingtian's body, because he can't completely take over Tathagata's body. After all, my disciple Duan Lingtian doesn't just have the flame yellow physique, he has 99 heavenly veins, and he has mastered 2 of the 4 Daos of heaven and earth. Moreover, his mastery of the law of space isn't low. Yes. At this point, Gongsun Xianyuan didn't intend to deny it. He knew that it would be useless even if he did. Feng Qingyang coming to him to ask this meant that he already had his guesses. It seems like I guessed correctly. Feng Qingyang nodded. At the same time he frowned and asked, is there no way to separate him from Tathagata's body? Or to help Tathagata expel him? There's no way. Gongsun Xianyuan smiled bitterly. His spirit has already merged with Tathagata's spirit. Unless he's willing to leave, only an ultimate expert can forcefully extract his spirit. Duan Lingtian, who was standing at the side, finally understood what his master wanted to confirm. It turned out that the titled God Emperor Xian Yuantian's hall master, Tathagata, was no longer him. Or rather, he was now in a half-possessed state. Normally, Tathagata's will was controlled by the dead spirit clan member, Duan Lingtian. Gongsun Xianyuan looked at Duan Lingtian with a solemn expression on his face. If you don't have anything to do in the future, try not to leave the heavenly palace of the solitary destructive heaven. Even if you want to leave the heavenly palace of the solitary destructive heaven, it's best if your master can protect you. Otherwise, the dead spirit clan member will definitely make a move on you. Duan Lingtian did not comment on Gongsun Xianyuan's warning. He was certain Gongsun Xianyuan had already guessed Tathagata's intention when he was probing him previously. However, Gongsun Xianyuan did not warn him. Instead, Gongsun Xianyuan asked him for a favor. It was not difficult to guess that Gongsun Xianyuan wanted Duan Lingtian to be possessed, so that his good friend, Tathagata, could regain his freedom. Gongsun Xianyuan must have wanted to help Tathagata find a way out. Gongsun Xianyuan naturally knew what Duan Lingtian was thinking when he saw the cold expression on Duan Lingtian's face. A wry smile appeared on his face, as a hint of guilt appeared in his eyes. Let's go. Feng Qingyang bade farewell to Gongsun Xianyuan before he left with Duan Lingtian. Did you gain any insights from the primordial precipice? Feng Qingyang asked Duan Lingtian after they left Gongsun Xianyuan's residence. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded. However, I was interrupted by the dead spirit clan member at the critical moment. At this moment, Duan Lingtian no longer referred to the person who attacked him as Tathagata. This was because that person was a member of the Nether Spirit clan, who was occupying Tathagata's body. He was not the real Tathagata. Everything he did was not controlled by Tathagata's will. Continue then. Feng Qingyang said as he escorted Duan Lingtian back to the heavenly palace of the solitary destructive heaven. Although there was a rule in the heavenly palace of the primordial heaven that young geniuses who entered the primordial precipice were not allowed to enter again. Who was Duan Lingtian? With Feng Qingyang's friendship with Ding Fu, it would only take a few words for Duan Lingtian to enter the primordial precipice. The primordial precipice was different from the secret chambers of laws in the tidal temple. The secret chambers of laws in the primordial heaven did not consume energy, so there was no harm to the heavenly palace of the primordial heaven. After Duan Lingtian entered the primordial precipice, Feng Qingyang did not leave. He hovered in the air outside the primordial precipice. Soon after, a figure appeared next to him. It was none other than Ding Fu, the heavenly emperor of the boundless heaven. How is it? Feng Qingyang asked. After he came out, Su Konghai, the vice palace master of the tidal temple, appeared and met up with him. I'm sure Su Konghai knows about this. Otherwise he wouldn't be here. Perhaps they plan to kidnap junior nephew Duan. Ding Fu said. Under normal circumstances, as a deity powerhouse, Su Konghai would definitely be able to discover Ding Fu, who was hiding at the side. However, where was this place? The heavenly palace of the primordial heaven was the territory of Ding Fu, the heavenly emperor of the primordial heaven. With the grand formation that enveloped the entire heavenly palace of the primordial heaven, Ding Fu could conceal himself perfectly. As long as he did not act rashly, even a god would not be able to detect him. I'm afraid Su Konghai has been used as well. Feng Qingyang sneered. After learning the motive of the dead spirit clansman who had taken over Tathagata's body, he knew it was impossible for the dead spirit clansman to help the tidal temple obtain his disciple, Duan Lingtian. The dead spirit clansman would leave as soon as he succeeded. As for Su Konghai, he was sure the dead spirit clansman had used him to intercept him. Chapter 3495. However, the tidal temple is really stubborn. Back then they tried to make a move on me, but they failed. Now they're targeting my disciple. Do they really think that I, Feng Qingyang, am a pushover? When Feng Qingyang reached the end of his sentence, a cold glint shot out from his eyes. It was as sharp as a sword, causing Ding Fu, who was standing beside him, to feel a chill in his bones. He could feel Feng Qingyang's anger. Feng Celestial Emperor, I know you're strong, but the tidal temple is too powerful. Don't go head-to-head with them, Ding Fu reminded. Ding Fu warned. He was worried that Zhang Xian would charge into the tidal temple in a fit of rage. Based on Feng Qingyang's strength, it was possible for him to do something like that. Don't worry, old brother Ding. Feng Qingyang immediately retracted his cold aura, and a smile appeared on his face. It was as if he was a completely different person from before. Before my real body leaves the Azura Hell, I won't act rashly, Feng Qingyang said. True body? Ding Fu's heart skipped a beat when he heard Feng Qingyang mentioning his true body. His younger brother Feng was an expert in the law of destruction. The law of Earth had a law clone that was independent of the law of Earth. However, the law clone of the law of destruction was usually one with the true body. Younger brother Feng, how strong is your true body now? Ding Fu asked curiously. He could not hold back his curiosity any longer. I can kill Su Konghai as if I'm killing a dog. Feng Qingyang narrowed his eyes as a glint flashed across his eyes. Gasp! Ding Fu gasped as soon as he heard Feng Qingyang's words. Su Konghai was the vice hall master of the tidal temple. Although there were more than one vice hall master in the tidal temple, the vice hall master was still considered one of the strongest in the tidal temple. At the very least, ordinary gods were no match for Su Konghai. However, his younger brother Feng was telling him that he could kill Su Konghai as if he was killing a dog. How could he not be shocked? Duan Lingtian didn't know about the exchange between Feng Qingyang and Ding Fu. After he returned to the primordial precipice, he continued to comprehend the laws of space contained within the primordial precipice, completely forgetting about the passage of time. Only when Su Li's voice sounded did he wake up. Duan Lingtian, it's time. The 5th round of the Devata Realm Battle of the Geniuses is about to begin. At this moment, Suli was standing in the air not far from Duan Lingtian. Beside him stood Ling Juyin and Tang Sanpao. At this moment, the three of them were looking at Duan Lingtian. So fast. Once again returning to the primordial precipice, Duan Lingtian no longer paid attention to the outside world like before. Instead, he wholeheartedly immersed himself in comprehending the laws of space contained within the primordial precipice, completely forgetting about time. Tathagata had already failed once. At this time, he was not worried that Tathagata would attack again. As for the people from the Tidal Temple, they would not attack again. Not long after Duan Lingtian returned to the primordial precipice, he received a message from his master, Feng Qingyang, informing him that Su Konghai, the vice palace master of the Tidal Temple's main hall, was keeping watch outside the primordial precipice. It seemed like Su Konghai was prepared to stop his master, Feng Qingyang, from coming to his rescue. Su Konghai. At that time, Duan Lingtian was filled with killing intent toward Su Konghai. When he was strong enough in the future, he would not let Su Konghai off so easily. Although he knew the Tidal Temple was plotting something against him, he did not expect the Tidal Temple would be so crazy as to join forces with Tathagata. Or to be more precise, the Tidal Temple would join forces with the Dead Spirit clan to kidnap him. Naturally, Su Konghai did not know Tathagata was being controlled by the Dead Spirit clan, let alone being used by the Dead Spirit clan. If the Dead Spirit clan succeeded, they would definitely bring him out of the heavenly palace of the primordial heaven. Perhaps, they would bring him back to the Dead Spirit clan in the netherworld and possess him. It feels like only a short while has passed. Who knew a month has passed? Duan Lingtian sighed as he shook his head. You're not the only one who feels this way. We feel the same way as well, Tang Sanpao said with a smile. All right, the 5th round of the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses is about to begin. Let's go. All right. When Duan Lingtian and the others left the primordial precipice, they discovered many young geniuses had also left the primordial precipice. For example, Yu Dongfang, the third true disciple of Gongsun Xianyuan, the heavenly emperor of the Yellow Arch Heaven, was among them. When Duan Lingtian saw Yu Dongfang was looking at him. It was obvious Yu Dongfang had noticed him. Duan Lingtian, I hope we'll meet soon. Yu Dongfang sent a voice transmission to Duan Lingtian provocatively. Duan Lingtian only smiled indifferently when faced with Yu Dongfang's provocation. He looked away and ignored Yu Dongfang. Yu Dongfang's expression turned unsightly when he saw Duan Lingtian ignoring him. His eyes flashed coldly as he glared at Duan Lingtian. When Duan Lingtian and the others arrived at the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses, they discovered most of the young geniuses had already arrived. Even the heavenly emperors and high-ranking officials from the various tidal temples were present. Duan Lingtian and the others discovered only one heavenly emperor was absent. It was none other than Duan Lingtian's master, Feng Qingyang, the heavenly emperor of the solitary destructive heaven. Ding Fu, the heavenly emperor of the primordial heaven, was present. Master isn't here yet? Duan Lingtian and the others returned to their original seats under the gazes of the others with doubts in their hearts. Soon after they sat down, Su Konghai, the vice palace master of the main hall of the Tidal Temple, who was in charge of presiding over the Devata Realm's Genius Battle, appeared and announced, "The 5th round of the Devata Realm's Genius Battle is about to begin. The rules of the first stage of the 5th round are similar to the rules of the first stage of the 4th round. The Tidal Temple will determine the participants. There will be 50 battles, and 50 people will advance to the next round. Naturally, in order to make the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses more exciting, we won't pit those who have displayed their strength against those who are already very strong against each other in the first stage of the 5th round. Therefore, young geniuses who are at least 4-star God of War will not be pitted against each other in the first stage of the 5th round." As soon as Su Konghai finished speaking, a disappointed expression appeared on the faces of many people. Initially, they wanted to watch a fierce battle between two powerful individuals. However, they did not expect the Tidal Temple would arrange a battle between the strong and the weak. It was not a battle between two powerful individuals, but a battle between two powerful individuals. Among the 100 young geniuses who had advanced to the 5th round, those who weren't even a 4-star war god, all had bitter smiles on their faces. It seemed that they would become cannon fodder in the first stage of this round, although they would have the opportunity to issue another challenge later on. However, among the 50 people who could temporarily advance, most of them were 4-star war gods or above. Even if the remaining people weren't 4-star war gods or above, they definitely had the ability of a peak 3-star war god. Under such circumstances, without sufficient strength and confidence, rashly challenging them would only be a disgrace. He might as well not challenge and admit that he was eliminated. It seems that we won't meet for the time being, Tang Sanpao said with a smile. Soon after, the name list appeared in the sky above the arena of the Devata Realm's Genius Battle. There were 5 battles going on at the same time. One of the battles was between Ling Juiyan and a young man called Yuan Tong. As for the other 4 battles, one of them was between Zhong Guiyu and a young genius who had almost been eliminated previously. When they left the arena, it was not only Ling Juiyan and Zhong Guiyu's opponents who had a grim expression on their faces. Even the other 3 people's opponents had grim expressions on their faces. Based on their expressions, one could tell they were the cannon fodder that the Tidal Temple had chosen. The 5 battles ended in just a dozen breaths' time. Nobody took the initiative to admit defeat. However, they were still defeated very quickly. The weakest opponent among the 5 people who were eliminated was a 4-star war god. Among them, Ling Juiyan and Zhong Guiyu were the fastest to end their battles. The 5 of them successfully advanced to the next round. Similar to the first stage of the 4th round of the Devata Realms, they had only advanced temporarily. However, everyone knew that with their strength, they would be able to advance to the 6th round of the Devata Realm's Genius Battle, as long as there were no accidents. Only 30 people would be able to advance to the 6th round. These 30 people were the top 30 in the Devata Realm's Genius Battle. In the past, most of the top 30 people in the Devata Realm's Genius Battle were 4-star war gods. Occasionally, all of them would be 4-star war gods. However, there were also a few 4-star war gods who were unlucky and were eliminated. The reason they were unlucky was because there were more than 30 young geniuses who were 4-star war gods or stronger in the Devata Realm's Genius Battle. Their strength was the weakest among the 4-star war gods, so they could only be eliminated 10 people at a time. 100 people will only be able to enter the arena 10 times. Among the 10 people who entered the arena the second time, 5 of them were very strong. 4 of them were 4-star war gods or stronger, and 1 of them was an elite among the 3-star war gods. The first 4 people ended their battles quickly while the last person took some time to defeat. Although he was a top 3-star war god, his opponent was also a 3-star war god who was quite strong. The 2 of them were in a stalemate for a while. In just a blink of an eye, another 5 people advanced temporarily. Then, another 10 people entered the arena. Then another list of 10 people appeared. This time, Duan Lingtian was on the list. Coincidentally, Yu Dongfang, the 3rd true disciple of Gongsun Xianyuan, the heavenly emperor of the Xianyuan heaven, was also on the list. Naturally, the 2 of them were no match for each other. However, the expressions of the 2 young geniuses who encountered the 2 of them were extremely unsightly. There was no suspense. Duan Lingtian and Yu Dongfang defeated their opponents with a single move and ended their battle at the same time. After the battle ended, Yu Dongfang glared at Duan Lingtian's departing figure coldly. There's something wrong with Yu Dongfang's gaze. Does he have a grudge against Duan Lingtian? Yu Dongfang's gaze was too obvious. Many young geniuses who were paying attention to him noticed it. Chapter 3496. Duan Lingtian. Yu Dongfang seems to be targeting you. After Duan Lingtian returned, Tang Sanpao glanced at Yu Dongfang, who was about to return to his seat, and said to Duan Lingtian, "Yes." Duan Lingtian nodded indifferently, and did not make any other response. He did not think much of Yu Dongfang. He had heard Tang Sanpao mention Yu Dongfang before. Although Yu Dongfang had only displayed the strength of a 4-star god of war, his true strength was most likely at the level of a 5-star god of war. However, even if Yu Dongfang had improved greatly over the years, he would at most be a 5-star god of war. It was almost impossible for him to possess the strength of a 6-star god of war. Moreover, even if it was possible, so what? This time, Duan Lingtian's greatest opponent was the young genius from the Tidal Temple. However, Duan Lingtian was still unsure of who it was. Among the group of people who had advanced from the 4th round to the 5th round, there were more than 10 young geniuses who had been nurtured by the Tidal Temple. Normally, that person should be among the 10 young geniuses. Among all the young geniuses, the one who has the highest chance of becoming a 6-star god of war should be the trump card of the Tidal Temple. The exploding yuan immortal fruit was secretly given to that person. Otherwise, the Tidal Temple would not be so generous. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Of course, this was the judgment of his master Feng Qingyang. At this moment, even he felt the same way. As time passed, Tang Sanpao and Su Li entered the arena one after another. Their opponents were only 3-star gods of war, and they were easily defeated by them. Ling Jueyan, you should also be a 5-star god of war, right? Tang Sanpao looked at Ling Jueyan. His eyes flickered as he asked the same question he had asked many times. As for Ling Jueyan, he ignored him as before. So far, among Duan Lingtian's group of 4, only Duan Lingtian and Tang Sanpao had displayed the strength of a 5-star war god. Whether it was Ling Jueyan or Su Li, they had all displayed the strength of a 4-star war god. There was no doubt Su Li was a 4-star god of war, since he had broken through during the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses. As for Ling Jueyan, based on the current situation, many people suspected that he was a 5-star war god. This was because when they saw him fight, they felt that he wasn't that simple. Soon the 50 people who had temporarily advanced were revealed. However, as the opponents arranged for them were all weaker than them, although they all fought, the strength they displayed was still the same as before. Those who should have hidden their strength still did. Next, the Tidal Temple will sort out the list again. The 50 people will be divided into 25 groups, and will fight each other. Although Su Konghai said he would sort out the list again, as soon as he finished speaking, another 10 names appeared in the sky above the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses. They're done sorting out the list so quickly? Many young geniuses were shocked when they saw this. Don't they need to think about it? In my opinion, they must have prepared this list a long time ago. They must have guessed that these 50 people would advance in the first stage of the 5th round. I think so too. The people present on the scene were not stupid. It was not difficult for them to figure this out. Among the 50 people, 25 of them will advance temporarily. The remaining 25 people will fight each other to determine the 5 strongest people, who will advance temporarily. The 30 people who advance temporarily will become the ring masters, and will be challenged by the remaining 70 people. Each person will have 3 chances to challenge the ring masters. Su Konghai's voice rang again as he explained the rules of the 5th round of the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses. I'm afraid many people won't be able to hide their strength anymore. The second stage of the 5th round of the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses caused many young geniuses' faces to light up. Perhaps, those who had displayed the strength of a 5-star god of war would be separated from the rest, so they would have to fight with the strongest 3-star gods of war. However, there would definitely be battles between 4-star gods of war. Some of the 4-star gods of war might even be 5-star gods of war. It was impossible for them to continue hiding their strength in this stage. Su Li, it's your turn, Tang Sanpao said with a smile on his face. Su Li's name appeared among the 10 names. He was about to go on stage and fight against someone who also had the strength of a 4-star war god. This person was one of the dozen young geniuses from the Tidal Temple. His name was Hong Yuan. Su Li, you're not a match for me. Hong Yuan was a young man dressed in a long grayish-white robe. He had a cold expression on his face as he looked at Su Li, who had just entered the arena. Even if I'm not a match for you, I still have to try. Su Li's expression did not change. In that case, let's begin. Hong Yuan nodded. When the battle between Su Li and Hong Yuan was about to begin, Duanling Tian's brows furrowed slightly before he finally relaxed. Among the dozen or so people in the Title Temple, Hong Yuan was one of the few people whom Duanling Tian suspected to be the trump card of the Title Temple. Until the beginning of the battle, Hong Yuan had remained calm and indifferent. He gave off an unfathomable aura. For a moment, Duanling Tian felt Hong Yuan was stronger than a 4-star god of war. At the very least, he was not an ordinary 4-star god of war. After that, Su Li was defeated by Hong Yuan in less than 10 moves. This confirmed Duanling Tian's suspicion. Su Li was defeated. Hong Yuan is at least an outstanding 4-star god of war. Su Li, who had just become a 4-star god of war, isn't a match for him. Zhang Tianyu said with a solemn expression. Soon after, Su Li returned to the arena. However, there was no hint of disappointment on his face. It was as though he did not care about his defeat at all. How was it? Duanling Tian asked as he looked at Su Li. Zhang Tianyu, Wang Ting, and He Jianyi were confused. Very strong. Su Li's expression turned solemn when he heard Duanling Tian's question. I feel like he's still hiding his strength. What? Zhang Tianyu and the others were shocked when they heard Su Li's words. He has already displayed the strength of a peak 4-star god of war. Is he still hiding his strength? Could it be that he's a 5-star god of war? The three of them were shocked. However, they believed Su Li's words. At the same time, most of the young geniuses present were discussing Su Li's defeat. Su Li was defeated. Although Su Li was defeated, it's still an honorable defeat. To be able to reach this stage at the age of 600 is enough for everyone to remember him. That's right. If Hong Yuan was only 600 years old, he definitely wouldn't be Su Li's match. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame Su Li for not being born 200 or 300 years earlier. Even if Su Li was born 100 years earlier, he might not have lost to Hong Yuan today. Although Su Li was defeated, he still received the respect of the young geniuses. Before this, no loser had received this kind of respect. At the same time, the other 4 matches had also concluded. One person displayed the strength of a 5-star god of war. It's Qi Hongtian Emperor's last disciple Zhou Yongqi. Oh my god! I didn't expect Zhou Yongqi to be a 5-star god of war. Previously, when Situ Zhuqing, the heavenly emperor of the Luo River Heaven, was present, Zhou Bingguo, the Qi Hongtian Emperor, tried to protect Situ Zhuqing in front of Feng Qingyang, the heavenly emperor of the solitary destructive heaven. However, he was suppressed by Feng Qingyang and did not dare to act rashly. Now that his last disciple is so strong, I'm afraid there'll be a fierce battle between him and the Duanling Tian. Zhou Bingguo is said to be an orphan adopted by Zhou Bingguo. It's also because of this that he took the surname Zhou Bingguo. In his eyes, Zhou Bingguo is like a father. He'll most likely vent his anger on the Duanling Tian. If I were him, I'd definitely be hostile to the Duanling Tian. I'd even kill the Duanling Tian. The Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses is a good opportunity. Even if he kills the Duanling Tian, Heavenly Emperor Feng Qingyang won't be able to say anything. Many people discussed among themselves when they learned Zhou Yongqi, the Qi Hongtian Emperor's last disciple, was a 5-star god of war. At the same time, they shifted their attention to the Duanling Tian. Even Zhou Yongqi himself glanced at Duanling Tian. Although his gaze seemed calm, Duanling Tian was still able to see the coldness in the depths of his gaze. However, he did not care about it at all. He wasn't even afraid of the trump card of the Title Temple, which could be a 6-star god of war. So why would he be afraid of Zhou Yongqi, who was only a 5-star god of war? It's Ling Juyan's turn to fight. After the 5 winners were decided, another 10 names were announced. One of them was Ling Juyan. Nobody knew if the Title Temple had done this intentionally, but Ling Juyan's opponent was one of the 10 young geniuses from the Title Temple. Moreover, Duanling Tian suspected his opponent was one of the titled God Emperor's trump cards. The young man's name was Lu Kongyu. Lu Kongyu had a medium build and an ordinary appearance. He had a head of gray hair that made him stand out. Up until now, the strength he had displayed was only at the level of a 4-star god of war. However, Many people felt that he was still hiding his true strength from the many times he had fought with others with ease. No matter if it's Ling Jueyin or Lu Kongyu, it's obvious that they were hiding their strength. I wonder who is stronger between the two of them. Based on the strength they've displayed so far, Ling Jueyin is slightly stronger. Ling Jueyin's strength is at the level of a 4-star god of war. That's right. If Lu Kongyu isn't a 5-star god of war, he won't be a match for Ling Jueyin. In this battle, Ling Jueyin will most likely display the strength of a 5-star god of war. While Ling Jueyin and Lu Kongyu were staring at each other, most of the people in the crowd turned to look at them. That was because of the 5 battles in the arena. Their battle was the most anticipated. Chapter 3497. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Lu Kongyu made the first move. Just as the crowd had predicted, when facing an opponent like Ling Jueyin, he unleashed a strength that was much stronger than what he had shown before. The strength of a top 4-star war god. Lu Kongyu has indeed hidden his strength. He is not an ordinary 4-star war god. He is a top 4-star war god. With the strength that Ling Jueyin had shown before, he might not be able to defeat Lu Kongyu. However, Ling Jueyin must have hidden his strength as well. While the crowd was whispering, Lu Kongyu had already started fighting with Ling Jueyin. At first, he was evenly matched with Ling Jueyin. After all, the strength that Ling Jueyin had shown at the beginning was only that of a top 4-star war god. The geniuses cultivated by the Tidal Temple are indeed extraordinary. It was rare for Ling Jueyin to speak. His tone was indifferent, and his voice was not loud, but it was heard by everyone who was watching the battle between him and Lu Kongyu. The people present were not ordinary people. Their hearing was amazing and unimaginable. Now let's end this. After about 30 moves, Ling Jueyin spoke unhurriedly. At the same time, the aura of death on his body grew stronger. The death doppelganger returned to his body. His entire body was surrounded by a violent black light. At the same time, he expanded and turned into a giant in the blink of an eye. In the giant's hand, a sickle formed by pure energy appeared out of thin air. Once it was formed, it gave people a creepy feeling. Death sickle. Many people could see that the death sickle that Ling Jueyin was using now had integrated other precepts of the Edict of Death. Ling Jueyin has indeed hidden his strength. Guessing was one thing, but witnessing it with one's own eyes was another. Seeing Ling Jueyin reveal the strength that he had previously hidden, many people's eyes lit up. More people's hearts raced as they watched the scene unfold in front of them. Buzz! The death sickle moved. As soon as it appeared, the void trembled as if it would collapse at any time. Lu Kongyu's figure flashed, trying to evade. However, the death god's scythe seemed to have locked onto him. No matter how he dodged, no matter how crafty his movements were, he could not dodge the attack. Drink. In the end, Lu Kongyu roared and used all his means to condense a powerful offensive to meet Ling Jueyin's death scythe. However, Ling Jueyin's sickle of the god of death was like a peerless divine weapon that could destroy heaven and earth. The moment it touched Lu Kongyu's attack, it was completely shattered. The power of the sickle of the god of death was not much, but it seemed a little dim. However, this consumption was negligible to the death god's scythe. Admit defeat. Su Konghai, the vice palace master of the Tidal Temple, who was presiding over the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses, sent a voice transmission to Lu Kongyu. You're no match for him. We arranged for you to fight him, because we wanted to further probe his strength. Now you've completed your mission. As soon as Su Konghai finished speaking, Ling Jueyin's death god's scythe was already closing in on Lu Kongyu. It seemed like Lu Kongyu was about to be killed. At this moment, everyone's hearts were in their throats. If Lu Kongyu did not crush his jade token and escape, he would definitely die. At the most critical moment, Lu Kongyu, who was on the brink of life and death, finally crushed the jade tablet with a pop sound. His whole person disappeared into thin air and appeared under the light shield of the formation, escaping with his life. Buzz! Ling Jueyin's death god's scythe seemed to be able to tear through everything as it landed on the formation's light shield. In just a blink of an eye, the death god's scythe shattered the light shield and continued to charge toward Lu Kongyu. It was not that Ling Jueyin did not hold back, but he could not. Lu Kongyu had disappeared in just a blink of an eye. It was so fast that he did not even have time to react. Humph! Su Konghai snorted in the air before he made a grabbing motion with his hand. In the next moment, an invisible giant hand appeared and crushed Ling Jueyin's death god's scythe. At this moment, Ling Jueyin finally regained his senses and withdrew his hand. Ling Jueyin victory! A gust of wind blew past, causing Ling Jueyin's robe to flutter noisily. At this moment, he had become the center of attention. Another 5-star god of war had revealed his strength. Up until now, how many people have revealed their strength as a 5-star god of war? The spectator seats were bustling with noise and excitement. Zhong Guiyu, Tang Sanpao, Duan Lingtian, Zhou Yongqi Ling Jueyin. There are a few others who might be 5-star gods of war as well. In that case, the number of 5-star gods of war in this Devata Realm Battle of Geniuses is around 10? There might even be more than 10 people? That seems to be the case. In the past, although more than 10 5-star gods of war had participated in the Devata Realm Battle of Geniuses, it was only a minority. Most of the time, there would not be more than 10 5-star gods of war in the Devata Realm Battle of Geniuses. However, before the second phase of the 5th round of the Devata Realm Battle of Geniuses ended, there were already 5 5-star gods of war. Moreover, there were more than 5 people who were suspected to be 5-star gods of war or stronger. Perhaps, there will be more than 10 5-star gods of war in this Devata Realm Battle of Geniuses. Many people sighed, and their eyes were filled with anticipation. Apart from the group of young geniuses, many heavenly emperors and high-ranking officials from the Tidal Temple's branch palaces were also filled with anticipation. Ling Jueyin, you're really a 5-star god of war. Tang Sanpao was the first to speak after Ling Jueyin returned. He had already guessed Ling Jueyin was a 5-star god of war, so he was not surprised. On the other hand, Duan Lingtian and Su Li were not surprised as well. On the other hand, although Zhang Tianyu and the others knew Ling Jueyin was not a simple person, they did not expect Ling Jueyin to be a 5-star god of war. What was this? Among the people sitting with them, 3 of them were 5-star war gods? In this Devata Realm Battle of Geniuses, there were only 5 young geniuses who had the strength of a 5-star god of war. And there were 3 of them sitting with them. Regardless of how shocked the 3 of them were, the Devata Realm Battle of Geniuses continued. Soon after, the other 4 battles were over. However, no one displayed the strength of a 5-star god of war. There were 2 people who displayed the strength of a top 4-star god of war. Before this, everyone thought they were just ordinary 4-star gods of war. Duan Lingtian, it's your turn. Soon after, Duan Lingtian's name appeared. Duan Lingtian's opponent was a 3-star god of war, just as most people had expected. The Tidal Temple would not arrange a strong opponent for a young genius who had already displayed the strength of a 5-star god of war. There were 30 spots for people to advance to the next round. Even if a 5-star god of war advanced to the next round, no one would have any objections. However, they still had to go through the motions. I admit defeat. Although Duan Lingtian's opponent was a top 3-star god of war, his strength was only comparable to that of a 3-star god of war. He would not even be able to contend with a 4-star god of war, let alone a 5-star god of war, who had already displayed the strength of a 5-star god of war. With Duan Lingtian's strength, he was confident that he would be able to withstand a single blow from him. Duan Lingtian won without a fight. After that, Tang Sanpao entered the arena. The situation was similar. The Tidal Temple assigned him an opponent who was also a 3-star god of war. Is this considered the benefit of a 5-star god of war? Many young geniuses said this. Of course, even if it was a benefit, no one was unconvinced. Duan Lingtian's strength was obvious. If one was capable and displayed the strength of a 5-star god of war, one would also receive the same treatment. Yu Dongfang. Soon, the 3rd direct disciple of the Heavenly Emperor of Xinyuan, Yu Dongfang, entered the arena. His opponent was another young genius, nurtured by the Tidal Temple. Previously, he had only displayed the strength of an ordinary 4-star god of war. This person probably didn't use his full strength before. Under Duan Lingtian's gaze, the young genius from the Tidal Temple fought with Yu Dongfang and displayed the strength of a top 4-star god of war. However, even so, he still lost. Yu Dongfang had originally displayed the strength of a top 4-star god of war. However, under the pressure of the young genius from the Tidal Temple, he finally displayed the strength of a 5-star god of war. This was also the first time he had displayed the strength of a 5-star god of war. No wonder you dared to challenge me. You really do have the strength of a 5-star god of war. Duan Lingtian smiled indifferently. He was not surprised by this at all, because he had already guessed this would happen. If Yu Dongfang did not possess the strength of a 5-star god of war, how could he be so bold as to threaten to teach Duan Lingtian a lesson in the Devata realm's battle of geniuses? The 6th 5-star god of war has appeared, the 3rd direct disciple of the heavenly emperor of Xianyuan, Yu Dongfang. After Yu Dongfang displayed the strength of a 5-star god of war, it caused an uproar among the crowd. The appearance of another 5-star god of war caused the atmosphere to reach its peak. It was as noisy as a wet market. However, after Yu Dongfang, 2 more 5-star gods of war appeared. However, due to the appearance of Yu Dongfang and Zhou Yongqi, and the appearance of 2 more 5-star gods of war, the commotion was not as great as before. After all, humans were able to adapt to the situation. Once one got used to the appearance of 5-star gods of war, one would be able to calm down. 8 5-star gods of war, Zhang Tianyu said with a sigh. If Su Li's guess is right, Hong Yuan, who defeated him, is also a 5-star god of war. In that case, there are 6 5-star gods of war. At this moment, Duan Lingtian was paying attention to one of the 2 5-star gods of war, who had just displayed the strength of a 5-star god of war. This person was one of the young geniuses from the Tidal Temple. Duan Lingtian suspected that this person was a 5-star god of war. Now that this person had displayed the strength of a 5-star god of war, Duan Lingtian's guess was correct. Could it be him? Or Hong Yuan? After Duan Lingtian's observation, he discovered Hong Yuan, who had defeated Su Li, and Sima Rue, who had just displayed the strength of a 5-star god of war, were among the young geniuses from the Tidal Temple. Chapter 3498. After Yu Dongfang, there were 2 other young geniuses who had the strength of a 5-star god of war. Apart from Sima Rue, who was nurtured by the Tidal Temple, there was another unknown young genius. Most importantly, the unknown young genius was also a woman who was rarely seen in the Devata realm's battle of the geniuses. She was a beautiful woman with a valiant aura. Her name was Yi Dongli. Although Yi Dongli was a woman, she was dressed in men's tight-fitting clothes that accentuated her perfect figure. Although the commotion caused by the duo's strength was not as great as the commotion caused by Zhou Yongqi and Yu Dongfang's strength, many people were still talking about them. As expected from the Tidal Temple, it's widely acknowledged as the Saint Land in the Devata realms. There are more than a dozen young geniuses who made it to the 5th round. In fact, the total number of people who made it to the 5th round is only 100. Most importantly, there's a 5-star god of war among the young geniuses they nurtured. I don't know why, but I have a strong feeling that there's more than one 5-star god of war among the young geniuses from the Tidal Temple. I think there's more than one as well. Where did Yi Dongli come from? A woman who's not even 1,000 years old is a 5-star god of war? I suddenly feel like I've been living like a dog all these years. I agree. In the future, if anyone dares to say a woman is inferior to a man, I'll definitely give them a slap. Soon after, the 25 people who made it to the 5th round of the Devata realm's battle of the geniuses were determined. Apart from Duan Lingtian, Tang Sampao, and Zhong Guiyu, these 3 young geniuses who had displayed the strength of a 5-star god of war, the other 22 spots were occupied by a few other 5-star god of war young geniuses, and a group of young geniuses who had at least the strength of a 4-star god of war. In the 3rd round of the 5th round, 5 of the 75 people who had been eliminated would advance temporarily. They would become ring masters along with the 25 people who made it to the 5th round. As long as they successfully defended their rings, they would advance to the sixth round. Although the competition was intense, the young geniuses who had been eliminated were not as strong as the previous battles. In the end, 5 of them won and obtained a spot. Suli was one of them. Although Suli had just broken through to become a 4-star god of war, due to the fact that he had inherited the Thousand Tribulations sword sex ancestor's legacy, he was able to perfectly utilize the profundities of the law with his sword, even though he had yet to master his own Tao. Under these circumstances, although he had just entered the level of a 4-star war god, he was stronger than most 4-star war gods. Of course, if the current him were to encounter a top-notch 4-star battle god, he would definitely be defeated. For example, the genius of the Tidal Temple, Hong Yuan, had displayed the strength of a peak 4-star god of war and defeated Suli. Suli, looks like you won't have any problems getting into the top 30. Duan Lingtian smiled. Barely. Suli sighed. To think that before I broke through, I was still wondering if I could enter the top 30 with the strength of a 3-star war god. Now it seems that even a normal 4-star war god would find it difficult to enter the top 30. There are too many outstanding geniuses in this year's Battle of Geniuses. There are more than 44-star gods of war. Zhang Tianyu sighed. Many people think there will be more than 10 5-star gods of war in this year's Battle of Geniuses. The Battle of Geniuses in the Devata realm with more than 10 5-star gods of war is worthy of being recorded in the annals of history. Currently, there are 8 people with the strength of a 5-star god of war. Among the remaining people, there must be some who haven't used their full strength yet. Zhang Tianyu could not help but speculate. The Devata realm's Battle of Geniuses continued. The 30 people who had temporarily advanced would be challenged by the remaining 70 people. Each of them had 3 chances to challenge the remaining 70 people. In the 3rd stage of the 5th round, Duan Lingtian, the young geniuses with the strength of a 5-star god of war, and the young geniuses with the strength of a peak 4-star god of war were not challenged. There were less than 10 4-star gods of war, including Suli, who were challenged. Their strength had not even reached the level of a peak 4-star god of war. However, after a series of challenges, only one of them was eliminated. Although the 30 of them had temporarily advanced, they had all relied on their own strength to advance. There was very little luck involved, so it was normal that only 1 out of the 30 of them would be pulled down. The people who have advanced to the 6th round of the Devata realm's Battle of Geniuses have been confirmed. The 30 young geniuses, please prepare yourselves for the 6th round of the Devata realm's Battle of Geniuses in the next 3 months. Su Konghai's voice resounded in the Devata realm's Battle of Geniuses. The top 30 will be determined in the 6th round of the Devata realm's Battle of Geniuses. That will also be the last round of the Devata realm's Battle of Geniuses. 3 months later, after the 5th round of the Devata realm's Battle of Geniuses ended, the 6th round of the Devata realm's Battle of Geniuses would begin in 3 months. The 6th round of the Devata realm's Battle of Geniuses would also be the last round of the Devata realm's Battle of Geniuses. At that time, the top 30 would be determined. The young geniuses were excited when they heard Su Konghai's words. After 3 months, no one will be able to conceal their cultivation base anymore. At that time, the top 30 in the Devata realm's Battle of Geniuses will be revealed. I've been waiting for this day for a long time. It's finally here. I'm really curious who will be the final winner of the Devata realm's Battle of Geniuses. At this moment, the group of young geniuses who had been eliminated from the Devata realm's Battle of Geniuses were even more excited than Duan Lingtian and the other young geniuses who had advanced to the last round. Duan Lingtian, Su Li Lingjuyan, see you in 3 months. To Duan Lingtian's surprise, Tang Sanpao did not leave with them this time. Instead, after bidding farewell to them, he left on his own. It was as though he had turned over a new leaf. Tang Sanpao must be feeling pressured, right? Is he in a hurry to return to cultivate? Su Li was surprised as well. What do you think? Are you still interested in going to the primordial precipice? Although the Tidal Temple only gave us 1 chance to enter the primordial precipice during the month, before the 6th round of the Devata Realms Battle of the Geniuses. If you want to go, I can inform my master and ask him to inform Senior Uncle Ding. It won't be a problem. Duan Lingtian asked Su Li and Ling Jueyan. I want to go and have a look. Su Li replied bluntly. What about you? Duan Lingtian looked at Ling Jueyan, who remained silent. There's no need for me to go. Ling Jueyan shook his head. I've already gained a lot from the primordial precipice last month. I'm going to spend the next 3 months to digest my gains. If you want to go, you can go on your own. All right. As soon as Duan Lingtian nodded, Ling Jueyan left on his own. Duan Lingtian, Su Li, I'm looking forward to your performance in 3 months. At this moment, Zhang Tianyu, Wang Ting, and He Jianyi also stood up and prepared to leave. Before they left, they looked at Duan Lingtian and Su Li with a hopeful expression on their faces. All of them hoped that Duan Lingtian and Su Li would shine in the final round of the Devata Realms Genius Battle. After all, they knew each other. Moreover, Duan Lingtian was the only true disciple of the legendary Heavenly Emperor of the Solitary Destructive Heaven. They hoped that Duan Lingtian would do well in the Devata Realms Battle of Geniuses and live up to the reputation of the Heavenly Emperor of the Solitary Destructive Heaven. After the 3 of them left, Duan Lingtian sent a message to his master, Feng Qingyang. Feng Qingyang also sent a message to Ding Fu, the Heavenly Emperor of the Primeval Heaven. Ding Fu sent a message to Duan Lingtian and Su Li so that they could enter the primordial precipice again. Duan Lingtian, see you in 3 months. Su Li bade farewell to Duan Lingtian before he made his way to the primordial precipice. On the other hand, Duan Lingtian had returned to the primordial precipice that he had comprehended earlier. It was not wise to bite off more than one could chew. Duan Lingtian understood this principle. In the next 3 months, he planned to stay in the primordial precipice for 2 months to comprehend the law of space. He planned to use the supreme powerhouse divinity to further comprehend the law of space in the primordial precipice. As for the 4 Tao of heaven and earth, it would take some time for him to comprehend them. Therefore, he was not worried about his safety in the primordial precipice for the next 2 months. After all, his master had sent him a voice transmission to inform him that the people from the heavenly palace of the primeval heaven outside the primordial precipice had been replaced by his senior uncle Ding. Therefore, no one would be able to enter the primordial precipice without his knowledge. Moreover, in the next 3 months, the primordial precipice would not be open to anyone in the heavenly palace of the primordial heaven. 3 months was a short period of time for all the geniuses in the Devata realms to advance to the final round of the Devata realms selection. Everyone hoped to have a breakthrough during this period of time, so that they could achieve a better result in the final round of the Devata realms selection. The higher one's ranking was, the better the rewards one would receive. Putting everything else aside, one would be able to stay in the Tidal Temple's secret chamber for a longer period of time. Master, Duan Lingtian pretended to be obedient and acted against you in secret. I'll definitely humiliate him in the final round of the Devata realms selection in 3 months. Yu Dongfang did not return to the residence arranged for him by the heavenly palace of the primordial heaven. Instead, he followed his master to his master's residence. Initially, he had planned to cultivate by himself for the next 3 months. However, his master had asked him to follow him. His master had told him that he had comprehended the Sword Tao recently, and if Yu Dongfang could comprehend it in the next 3 months, he would be able to improve his strength. Hearing Yu Dongfang's words, Gongsun Xianyuan shook his head and said, "Don't just set your sights on him, and don't blame him for going against his wishes. If it were you facing someone who wanted to possess you, and facing the same choice, what would you do?" Literature Hall. Chapter 3499. Although Yu Dongfang could understand Gongsun Xuanyuan's words, he did not intend to let it go. No matter what, since he promised you that he would return you a favor, he did that despite my warning. It's no different from making a fool of you, master. At that time, he must have guessed why you asked him for a favor, but he still did that. A cold light flashed in Yu Dongfang's eyes as he spoke. He exuded a cold aura, causing the temperature in the air to drop. It was as though winter had arrived. Gongsun Xianyuan shook his head, but he did not say anything else. Although Duan Lingtian was not stronger than his disciple, he knew that Duan Lingtian was stronger than him. However, he had a feeling that Duan Lingtian was hiding a lot of his strength. He did not see it, but it was a feeling that was similar to intuition. However, in order not to destroy the morale of his disciples, Gongsun Xianyuan did not say anything else. He changed the topic and began to talk about cultivation. Most importantly, he was only one step away from mastering the sword principle that he had figured out. At that time, he would not be afraid even if he were to face Ding Fu, the heavenly emperor of the primeval heaven, who was ranked 4th on the emperor ranking of all heavens. Ding Fu's current strength was only because he had mastered the devouring Tao of the 4 Taos of heaven and earth. As long as Gongsun Xianyuan mastered his own sword principle, he was confident that he would not be at a disadvantage in a fight with Ding Fu. Of course, if he wanted to defeat Ding Fu, he would need to improve further. Duan Lingtian is known as a genius in the sword principle. After meeting Feng Qingyang for 100 years, he mastered his own space sword principle with Feng Qingyang's destruction vision. Gongsun Xianyuan sighed. You should learn from him in this aspect. Of course, it's also because you're not as good as Feng Qingyang. You haven't mastered your own sword principle yet. Upon hearing Gongsun Xianyuan's words, Yu Dongfang shook his head and said, Master, everyone has their own fortuitous encounter. Who knows if Feng Qingyang had some kind of fortuitous encounter that allowed him to grasp the power of destruction. Moreover, he must have had a great encounter when he was trapped in the Azura Hell. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come out as a deity, you said. Yu Dongfang said. Most of the time, luck is also a part of strength. Gongsun Xianyuan shook his head. He had no intention of using this as an excuse to console himself. I'm not as good as him now. This is a fact. Master, even if you're not as good as him, I'll show everyone in the Devata realms that the true disciple of the heavenly emperor of Xianyuan is stronger than the true disciple of the heavenly emperor of solitary destructive. Yu Dongfang said in high spirits. During the Devata realm's battle of the geniuses, the heavenly palace of the primeval heaven had arranged 3 residences for the participants, a group of young geniuses living in one place. The heavenly emperors of the various Devata realms were arranged to stay in another place. On the other hand, the high-ranking officials of the tidal temple were arranged in different locations. As the host of the Devata realm's battle of geniuses, the vice palace master of the tidal temple's main hall, and the person with the highest status in the tidal temple, Su Konghai had his own private and secluded residence. It was a quiet valley that the heavenly palace of the primeval heaven had arranged for Su Konghai to stay in. At this moment, Su Konghai was sitting cross-legged in front of a small waterfall at the side of the valley, with his eyes closed. Nobody knew if he was meditating or cultivating. Swoosh! Suddenly, a figure appeared not far from Su Konghai like the wind. Looking at him from afar, the figure greeted him faintly, Martial Uncle Su. Are you confident? At the same time that Su Konghai asked, he opened his eyes and looked at the other party. Based on the strength they've displayed so far, I'm 100% confident. The young man said proudly, I don't think there's a second 6-star god of war. Su Konghai said, there's no doubt you'll be the winner. Even if there's a peak 5-star god of war among them, they won't be a match for you. I'm not that optimistic. The young man shook his head. What's wrong? Do you feel threatened? Su Konghai asked curiously. Who are they? 2 people. The young man's eyes gleamed as he said unhurriedly, Duan Lingtian and Ling Juiyan. Them? Su Konghai was taken aback. Why are you talking about them? You can even say it's Yu Dongfang, Zhong Guiyu, or Yi Dongli. Why do you say they're a threat to you? You know Duan Lingtian. He's only 600 years old, and it's already impressive for him to possess the strength of a 5-star god of war. Even if he has mastered 2 of the 4 Taos of heaven and earth, he can't do 2 things at once. I think he's already mastered all the laws of space that he has comprehended. When Su Konghai mentioned Duanling Tian, there was still a gleam in the depth of his eyes. Apart from that, there was also a hint of greed that was difficult to detect. Yes. The young man nodded. He knew what Su Konghai was talking about. How much do you know about Ling Jueyin? Do you know how old he is? Su Konghai asked. Those who participate in the Devata Realm's Battle of Geniuses are all younger than 1,000 years old. Junior Uncle Su, are you trying to tell me he's younger than Duanling Tian and Su Li? The young man asked. He's about the same age as Duanling Tian. They're both 600 years old. Su Konghai's eyes glinted as he said bluntly. Gasp. Almost at the same time as Su Konghai's voice fell, the young man couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. His face was aghast, and his eyes also showed waves of shock, unable to calm down for a long time. Junior Uncle Su, how did you know? The young man asked again. Are you mistaken? Whether it was Duanling Tian or Su Li, it was already shocking for them to possess their current cultivation bases when they were only 600 years old. However, his junior uncle Su said Ling Jueyin was about the same age as them. You should know that apart from those who are guaranteed by the heavenly emperors of the Devata realms, the participants in the Devata realms Battle of Geniuses were all brought here by the Tidal Temple's branches. Although the heavenly emperors of the Devata realms didn't test their bone age, they would still be tested after the Devata realms Battle of Geniuses ended. Generally speaking, the heavenly emperors of the Devata realms must have tested the age of the heavenly emperors before bringing them to the Devata realms to participate in the Devata realms Battle of the Geniuses. It's basically impossible for the heavenly emperors to cheat. If any heavenly emperor dares to play favoritism in the Devata realms Battle of Geniuses, not only will his reputation be tarnished, but the Tidal Temple won't let the matter rest either. Su Konghai said, if Ling Jueyin was brought here by one of the Devata realms Battle of Geniuses, it's only natural that I don't know his exact age. However, the problem is he's with the heavenly emperors of the Devata realms. He's with the Tidal Temple's Fengqing Tian's branch. Fengqing Tian's branch has tested Ling Jueyin's bone age, and it's less than 700 years old. Fengqing Tian's perception of Ling Jueyin's strength is only at the level of a 3-star or 4-star god of war. However, Ling Jueyin's strength is at the level of a 5-star god of war. Do you think they're a threat to a 6-star god of war, who's less than 700 years old? Su Konghai studied the young man from head to toe. Aren't you worrying too much? Even if you're worried, you shouldn't be worried about the two of them, right? They're too young. It's already heaven-defying for them to possess the strength of a 5-star god of war. It's impossible for them to possess the strength of a 6-star god of war. Su Konghai's words were filled with certainty, as if he felt that his thoughts were correct. I hope so. The young man nodded. However, the feeling they give me is indeed different. Junior Uncle Su, you should have heard from my master that I have an innate intuition. This intuition has allowed me to escape from the 9 Serenities battlefield several times. Based on the young man's words, it was obvious he had entered the 9 Serenities battlefield before. I've heard of your intuition before. However, there are always times when intuition is wrong. Don't tell me your intuition isn't wrong? Su Konghai asked. The young man frowned slightly. Sometimes, after my intuition sensed something, I'd leave immediately without checking if there was any danger. At that time, I didn't dare to confirm if my intuition was right or not. Moreover, there was a time when my intuition was wrong. The young man said, isn't that enough? Intuition isn't omnipotent. Su Konghai said, I hope so. The young man nodded. Moreover, even if both of them are 6-star gods of war, so what? I heard from your master that you've killed 9 6-star gods of war in the 9 Serenities battlefield, right? Su Konghai asked. Yes. The young man nodded. However, those 6-star gods of war were at the bottom of the 6-star gods of war. Even if they were at the bottom of the 6-star gods of war, they were at the bottom of the 6-star gods of war. Even if they were at the bottom of the 6-star gods of war, they were still stronger than peak 5-star gods of war. Su Konghai smiled faintly. Don't worry. In 3 months, you'll definitely rank first in the Devata Realms Battle of Geniuses. Then, you'll rightfully obtain the exploding element celestial fruit. Even if Vice Palace Master Lu's granddaughter covets the exploding element celestial fruit, she won't be able to compete with you. There was only one exploding element celestial fruit in the Tidal Temple. After the Tidal Temple obtained the exploding element celestial fruit, many high-ranking officials wanted to obtain it, so their descendants could consume it. Among them, a Vice Palace Master with the surname Lu and Su Konghai had the highest status. When the others saw both of them interfering, they could only give up. In the end, both of them were unwilling to give in to each other. Their conflict continued to intensify. Chapter 3500. For this reason, the main hall master of the Tidal Temple had decided to reward the winner of the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses to prevent the conflict from escalating. For this reason, Vice Hall Master Lu had no choice but to give up since he knew there was no hope for his daughter. Su Konghai, on the other hand, felt the main hall master of the Tidal Temple was deliberately helping his junior nephew, the young man standing before him, obtain the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses. Since Su Konghai understood this principle, Deputy Palace Master Lu naturally understood it as well. However, since the main hall master of the Tidal Temple had given him a way out, there was nothing he could do. At the very most, he could only pray that someone else would obtain the exploding element celestial fruit, and obtain the exploding element celestial fruit. That way, he would be able to feel better. Of course, he only dared to think about all of this in his heart, and didn't dare speak it out. Because once he spoke it out, it would cause universal condemnation. Everyone would say that he was an ingrate that sided with outsiders and suppressed his own people. I must obtain the exploding element celestial fruit. The young man's eyes shone brightly. Currently, he was only a 9 palaces celestial emperor. If he obtained the exploding element celestial fruit, he would be able to break through and become a 10 directions celestial emperor and break through to the godly spirit stage. Moreover, he could use the time he saved to comprehend profundities from the law to improve his strength. Let's go back. Su Konghai smiled faintly. There's no need to think too much. Don't feel pressured. Duan Lingtian, Ling Juiyan, and the other young geniuses from the Devata realms are destined to be your stepping stones. Based on Su Konghai's words, it was clear he trusted the young man. Duan Lingtian was unaware that the Tidal Temple's trump card had revealed itself, and was wary of him and Ling Juiyan. Currently, Duan Lingtian was in the primordial precipice, fully immersed in comprehending the laws of space. Although the space law left behind on the primordial precipice wasn't as profound as the Supreme Master's Godhead, the space law left behind on the primordial precipice took a different path. There were many space law profundities that Duan Lingtian had never thought of before. There were some combinations that he could use right now. However, there were more combinations that she couldn't use right now because she hadn't fused some of the profundities of the law of space yet. People who comprehended any law would fuse different profundities, have different methods, and have different powers. For example, when 2 offensive profundities of a certain law were fused together, their might would become extremely powerful, and it would not be as simple as 1 + 1. However, if the offensive profundities and the speed profundities were fused together, not only would the power be guaranteed, but the speed of the attack would also be guaranteed. The fusion of profundities from a law was ever-changing. For this reason, titled celestial emperors, who were proficient in the same law, would have different effects when they cast their profundities. It's like this. It's like this. Amazing. It's amazing. Duan Lingtian was so engrossed in the primordial precipice that he forgot about time and everything else other than the law of space. At the same time, Suli was also immersed in the primordial precipice. Duan Lingtian and Suli going to the primordial precipice wasn't a secret to some observant people. For example, Lord Tathagata, the hall master of the Tidal Temple's Xianyuan Heaven's Tidal Temple, and Lord Yahiko of the Dead Spirit Clan, was slightly tempted when he learned that Duan Lingtian had entered the primordial precipice again. Now, Feng Qingyang should be at ease with Duan Lingtian being alone in the primordial precipice, right? Perhaps I'll succeed if I make a move now. Lord Yahiko was still hoping for a fluke. However, just as this thought appeared in his mind, before he could put it into action, he completely dispelled this idea. No, it's too risky. Even if Feng Qingyang isn't here, he'll definitely tell the Heavenly Emperor of the Primordial Heaven to take precautions. Based on their friendship, the Heavenly Emperor of the Primordial Heaven will definitely cooperate with him. It seems like I'll have to look for another opportunity in the future. Lord Yahiko could not forget about Duan Lingtian's body. He was willing to pay any price as long as he could possess Duan Lingtian's body. With 99 heavenly veins, he was certain Duan Lingtian would be able to attain godhood. After all, mastering 2 of the 4 Daos of heaven and earth was equivalent to obtaining a pass to become a god, let alone mastering 2 of the 4 Daos of heaven and earth. Lord Yahiko muttered to himself, "As for Feng Qingyang, when I've fully recovered in 100 years, I'll definitely pay you a visit. If I can kill you, Duan Lingtian will be a piece of meat on my chopping board." Yahiko muttered to himself as his eyes shone brightly. It was as though he could already see the scene of him killing Feng Qingyang and Duan Lingtian being at his mercy. He could not help but feel emotional. The final round of the Devata Realm's Battle of Geniuses would begin in 3 months. Most of the geniuses who made it into the top 30 felt pressured, so they began to cultivate in seclusion as soon as they returned to their respective realms. Meanwhile, the young geniuses gathered in groups of 3 to 5 to discuss the final round of the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses. So far, there are 8 5-star gods of war. Do you think there will be more than 10 5-star gods of war in this Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses? I don't think there will be any surprises. I think there will be more than 10 5-star gods of war in this Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses. Who's going to be the first? I'm not sure. After all, no 5-star gods of war have fought with another 5-star god of war, so it's hard to say who's stronger. Do you think there'll be a 6-star god of war? A 6-star god of war? How dare you think about it? Do you know what it means to have a 6-star god of war who's not even 1,000 years old? The Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses is held once every 1,000 years. There might not even be a 6-star god of war who's not even 1,000 years old in 10 consecutive Devata Realms Battles of the Geniuses. There are more than 10 5-star gods of war in this Devata Realms Battle of the Geniuses. There might be a 6-star god of war. All of the young geniuses who had been eliminated were looking forward to the final round of the Devata Realms Battle of the Geniuses in 3 months. In fact, they were even more excited than the 30 people who had made it to the next round. Under normal circumstances, 3 months was just a blink of an eye for the young geniuses who had been eliminated. However, 3 months seemed like years to them, as they looked forward to the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses in 3 months. Day by day they counted day by day. Another day passed, another day passed, another day passed. Many people realized that this day was actually so long. Finally, the last round of the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses was about to begin. 3 months had passed since the last round of the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses had begun. Tomorrow is the final round of the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses. I'll send a message to Suli so he won't miss it. Duan Lingtian had returned from the primordial precipice. He had returned to his wooden house and was comprehending the law of space and the space sword Tao with the supreme powerhouse divinity. It was only a few days ago that he stopped comprehending the law of space and closed his eyes to rest. He knew it would be difficult for him to make any progress in just a few days. It would be better for him to take a break and digest what he had learned recently. It would be helpful for him to improve his strength. Tomorrow is the final round of the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses? Suli was surprised when he was awakened by Duan Lingtian's message. He did not expect 3 months to pass so quickly. Hurry up and come out. Don't miss it. Duan Lingtian sent another message to Suli, urging him to leave the primordial precipice, so he would not miss the final round of the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses. Even if Suli missed the final round, he would still be ranked 30th. However, if he did not miss the final round, He might be able to move up a few ranks and stay in the Tidal Temple's secret chamber for a longer period of time. It's finally time. Tomorrow is the final round of the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses. Let's go. Let's go back and rest. We'll have enough energy to watch the final round of the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses tomorrow. You're right. We should rest. We've been waiting for 3 months. Tomorrow was the day of the final round of the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses. The young geniuses who had been waiting for this day for 3 months were no longer in a hurry. After all, it was getting closer and closer. Tomorrow was the day of the Battle of the Geniuses. /B. The next day, the final round of the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses began as scheduled. Early in the morning, the spectator seats around the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses were filled with people. Their faces were flushed with excitement, as though they had been injected with chicken blood. They were the spectators of the final round of the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses. However, the main characters of the final round of the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses had yet to arrive. The heavenly emperors and high-ranking officials from the Tidal Temple's branches had yet to arrive. Instead, it was the young geniuses who had arrived too early. It was as though they were afraid they would miss out on something. After about an hour, high-ranking officials from the Tidal Temple's branches began to arrive one after another. Then, heavenly emperors began to arrive one after another. After that, a few of the 30 people who had advanced finally appeared and successfully attracted the attention of many people. Then more and more people from the 30 people who had advanced appeared. When Duan Lingtian, Su Li Lingjueyan and Tang Sanpao arrived, it caused a huge commotion. Duan Lingtian is here. There's also Ling Jueyan and Tang Sanpao. Out of the 8 people who have displayed their strength as 5-star gods, 3 of them are from this small group. This is unbelievable. The arrival of Duan Lingtian and the others attracted the attention of many people. Chapter 3501. Tang Sanpao was the first person in Duan Lingtian's group to display his strength as a 5-star god of war. Before Tang Sanpao displayed his strength as a 5-star god of war, let alone those who did not know Tang Sanpao, including Duan Lingtian, did not expect Tang Sanpao to be a 5-star god of war. In their opinion, Tang Sanpao was a talkative and easygoing person. Although he did not talk much in front of others, he was especially talkative in front of Duan Lingtian and the others, especially Duan Lingtian. After Tang Sanpao, Duan Lingtian was the second person in Duan Lingtian's group to display his strength as a 5-star god of war. Duan Lingtian. Everyone had heard of his existence long before they saw him. It was all because of the extremely dazzling halo above his head. He was the only true disciple of Feng Qingyang, the legendary heavenly emperor of the solitary destructive heaven. There were 81 heavenly emperors in the Devata realms. Every heavenly emperor would have a few disciples. However, Feng Qingyang was the only heavenly emperor who did not have a single disciple, let alone a true disciple. For this reason, those who were in the know were shocked when they learned that Feng Qingyang had a true disciple. If it were any other heavenly emperor, even the heavenly emperor ranked first on the heavenly emperor ranking, accepting a true disciple would not be as shocking as the news of Feng Qingyang accepting a true disciple before it was confirmed that he had become a god. This was all because of Feng Qingyang's unique personality. He was very different from the other heavenly emperors. Even Gongsun Xianyuan, the heavenly emperor of the Xianyuan heaven, who was as famous as Feng Qingyang in the past, had many disciples and 4 true disciples. For this reason, Duan Lingtian had attracted a lot of attention before the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses. In the beginning, most people thought Duan Lingtian was lucky to be favored by Feng Qingyang, the heavenly emperor of the solitary destructive heaven, and become Feng Qingyang's only true disciple. However, Duan Lingtian continued to display his strength during the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses. He even displayed his strength as a 5-star god of war before the final round of the Geniuses' Battle of the Devata Realms. At this moment, even those who were not convinced that Duan Lingtian was the true disciple of Feng Qingyang the heavenly emperor of the solitary destructive heaven, had no choice but to accept it. When they asked themselves honestly, none of them had the same achievement as Duan Ling Tian at his age. Perhaps, only someone as talented as Feng Qingyang, the heavenly emperor of the solitary destructive heaven, was qualified to accept such a monstrous genius as his disciple. If Duan Ling Tian is a seckless cultivator without a master, even the heavenly emperor of the Ji Brahma heaven, who's ranked first on the heavenly emperor ranking in the Devata realms, would be tempted to accept him as his true disciple. His innate talent is heaven-defying. He's only 600 years old, but he's already a 5-star god of war. Moreover, he's the only true disciple of the heavenly emperor of the solitary destructive heaven. With such innate talent and a master, I'm sure he'll be an earth-shattering figure in the Devata realms in the future. Such a person would definitely make a name for himself in the realms of gods. Many young geniuses sighed as they looked at Duan Lingtian. Zhong Guiyu, the young genius who claimed to be Su Yasi's junior brother in front of Duan Lingtian, and the monstrous seckless cultivator, who had displayed the strength of a 5-star god of war, could not help but look at Duan Lingtian. It seems like senior sister didn't lie to me. Based on Duan Lingtian's current strength, it seems like he's on par with me. However, it won't be easy for him to defeat me with just this little bit of strength. Unless he's hiding something. Although Zhong Guiyu had such thoughts, he did not think it was possible. Duan Lingtian, who was not even 700 years old, possessed such strength. It was already shocking and heaven-defying enough, let alone the fact that such a person had never appeared in the history of the Devata realms. Even the strongest powerhouses in the Devata realms, who had come from the Devata realms, had not achieved such a feat at such a young age. Zhong Guiyu even wondered if there was such a person. In the realms of gods, there was no one who possessed such strength at such a young age. Perhaps there was. After all, many natives in the realms of gods were the children and descendants of gods. They were born with supreme innate talent. Perhaps not. After all, it was too heaven-defying for a 600-year-old 5-star god of war, who had mastered 2 of the 4 Tao of heaven and earth. There's also Ling Jueyan. While many people were paying attention to Duan Lingtian and Tang Sanpao, there were also some who were paying attention to Ling Jueyan. They had a deep impression of this mysterious, powerful, and ruthless young man. I wonder where he came from. This time, there are so many genius seckless cultivators who have never been heard of before. They must be the disciples or descendants of reclusive powerhouses, or have obtained heaven-defying legacies. Heaven-defying legacies? I'm afraid only the legacies left behind by gods or stronger can nurture such outstanding young powerhouses. At this moment, Suli was also the focus of many people's attention. Although he was not a 5-star god of war, he was too young. So young that it was shocking. Although he was obviously not as good as Duan Lingtian, compared to everyone present except for Duan Lingtian, he was not inferior at all. Of course, these people had such thoughts because they did not know that Ling Jueyan's real age was about the same as Su Li and Duan Lingtian. Ling Jueyan, how old are you? At this moment, Tang Sanpao suddenly looked at Ling Jueyan and asked without any warning. Perhaps he had heard many people whispering around him, or perhaps he had suddenly thought of something. Faced with his question, Ling Jueyan only glanced at him indifferently and ignored him. Tang Sanpao smiled brightly. Ling Jueyan, you must be almost 1,000 years old, right? It seems that you are the oldest among us. Tang Sanpao was obviously trying to provoke Ling Jueyan. However, Ling Jueyan did not fall for it, and continued to ignore him, which made him a little annoyed. He is about the same age as me and Suli, Duan Lingtian said. He had a rough idea of Ling Jueyan's age. After all, he and Ling Jueyan had known each other for a long time. Moreover, the sword spirit of his 7 orifices exquisite sword, Huang knew Ling Jueyan very well. Less than 700 years old. Hearing Duan Lingtian's words, Tang Sanpao's eyes flashed and asked subconsciously, yes. Seeing Duan Lingtian nod, Tang Sanpao sucked in a breath of cold air. Then he glanced at Duan Lingtian and the other 2. You are a group of perverts. However, you are all younger than me. Shouldn't you call me Brother Tang? Tang Sanpao's slightly unnatural expression disappeared in a moment. It was like a flash in the pan, and was replaced by a mocking smile. This time, not only did Ling Juyin ignore him, but Duan Lingtian also ignored him. As for Su Li, he turned his head away. Tang Sanpao was furious when he saw this. You all. After Duan Lingtian and the others took their seats, a beautiful figure appeared and attracted the attention of the group. It's Yi Dongyu. Although Yi Dongyu looked ordinary, and her appearance could only be considered delicate, disregarding everything else, just the strength of a 5-star war god was enough to make her the focus of everyone's attention. She was the only woman who had the strength of a 5-star god of war in the Devata Realm's Battle of Geniuses. Of course, she was not the only woman who had advanced to this round. There were 4 other women, but the one who had displayed the strongest strength so far was her. Although the other 4 women were more beautiful than Yi Dongli, they were not as attractive as Yi Dongyu at this moment. I've never heard of Yi Dongyu before. A female 5-star god of war, who's less than 1,000 years old, is extremely rare even in the Devata realms. Many people sighed emotionally. That's right. There might be many female 5-star gods of war who's less than 1,000 years old in the realms of gods. But in the Devata realms, they're as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. Although this Yi Dongyu is not an outstanding beauty, if I can become her Dao companion, it will be a great joy in my life. If you want to marry her, you'll have to be stronger than her. When Yi Dongyu entered the square, she received as much attention as Duan Lingtian and the others. Even Duan Lingtian could not help but take a few more glances at Yi Dongyu. Although this woman looked ordinary, she was a 5-star god of war. It was truly shocking. There were indeed many hidden dragons and crouching tigers in this world. Previously, before the Devata Realm's Battle of Geniuses, he had asked his master Feng Qingyang if there were many female celestials who would stand out in the Devata Realm's Battle of Geniuses. However, his master did not say much. In fact, no female 5-star gods of war had ever appeared in the Devata Realm's Battle of Geniuses. For this reason, Duan Lingtian could not help but take a few more glances at Yi Dongyu. Duan Lingtian, Su Li, why are you staring at Yi Dongyu? Don't tell me you've fallen for her? At this moment, Tang Sanpao's voice rang from behind Duan Lingtian and Su Li. Let me remind you, a woman like her is a rose with thorns. If you want to tame her, you'll have to at least be stronger than her. Su Li, don't even think about it for now. As for Duan Lingtian, he has a high chance. Tang Sanpao said mockingly. You know her well. Duan Lingtian turned around and looked at Tang Sanpao. What? Do you know her? Or, have you ever been with her? A hint of awkwardness flashed in Tang Sanpao's eyes before he smiled awkwardly. Not really. We've only met once. Her master is a godly spirit powerhouse. My master, that old man. When he sees her master, he has to call him martial uncle. This was the first time Duan Lingtian and the others had heard Tang Sanpao say this. Chapter 3502. As soon as Tang Sanpao finished speaking, Zhang Tianyu, who was sitting next to him, exclaimed in surprise. No wonder I felt Yi Dongyu was looking at us. I thought she was looking at Duan Lingtian, but now that I think about it, she was looking at you. Looking at Duan Lingtian? Why would she look at him? Tang Sanpao was stunned. Wasn't it obvious? That woman had obviously stared at him a few times. However, he could not help but sigh. Women were indeed vengeful creatures. They had only met once, and it was a small misunderstanding. It had been a few hundred years, but she still remembered it. Duan Lingtian is handsome. Zhang Tianyu said matter-of-factly. Zhang Tianyu said matter-of-factly. Among us men, it seems like only Duan Lingtian's face is the most attractive to women, right? What's with that look? Are you blind? Tang Sanpao glared at Zhang Tianyu. I suspect there's something wrong with your sense of beauty. I'm obviously better looking than Duan Lingtian. And yet, you go against your conscience and say he's good looking. What did he give you? If it's not much, I'll give you double. Upon hearing Tang Sanpao's words, not only did Zhang Tianyu roll his eyes, But even Wang Ting, who was standing at the side, could not help but snicker. She felt Tang Sampao was full of himself. Although Tang Sampao was not bad-looking, he could not be considered handsome. At most, he was slightly above average. It's about to begin. At this moment, He Jianyi spoke. Duan Lingtian and the others saw Su Konghai, the vice palace master of the Tidal Temple, who was in charge of presiding over the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses, flying toward them from afar. In just a blink of an eye, he looked around and announced, "I hereby announce the start of the final round of the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses." Although they knew Su Konghai was here, and the first round of the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses was about to begin, they could not help but feel excited when they heard Su Konghai's announcement. It was here. It was finally here. The 3 months of waiting had not been in vain. In the final round of the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses, the Tidal Temple will no longer list the participants. The participants will be decided by drawing lots. Most of the people present on the scene were already aware of Su Konghai's words. After all, the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses had always had such a rule. This time was no exception. The last 30 participants would draw lots to decide who they would fight in the first round. Do you guys think that in the first round of 30 people, there will be a 5-star war god meeting a 5-star war god? Many people were looking forward to it. Based on the current situation, out of the 30 people, 8 of them are 5-star war gods. Therefore, the possibility of the 5-star war gods facing each other is still very high. I hope that the battle between the 5-star war gods won't come too quickly. It's better to leave the best for last. Amidst the whispers of the surrounding young geniuses, Su Konghai had already taken out a large box with only one opening. Inside this box, there are a total of 30 jade pieces, each engraved with a number from 1 to 30. The person who gets 1 will fight with the person who gets 2. The person who gets 3 will fight with the person who gets 4, and so on. Now the 30 participants who have advanced come forward. Don't try to use your divine consciousness to check the numbers. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences. In the previous Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses, it was said that some people had tried to use their divine consciousness to check the jade slips in the box. In the end, their divine consciousness was destroyed by the person in charge of the Tidal Temple's Battle of the Geniuses. The person's soul was injured, and it was difficult for him to unleash his full strength in the subsequent battles. After that, no one dared to act recklessly anymore. For this reason, as soon as Su Konghai finished speaking, the 30 young geniuses who had advanced to the final round, including Duan Lingtian, flew up into the air one after another. When they approached Su Konghai, they behaved themselves and did not dare to act recklessly. Then, under the watchful eyes of the others, they took turns to draw lots and received their jade slips. After a short while, all 30 of them received their respective jade slips. "What's your number?" After Tang Sampao received his jade slip, he looked at the number on it and asked Duan Lingtian and the others curiously. Ling Juyin did not say anything. He merely opened his jade slip and saw the number 5 on it. It was obvious he was number 5. His opponent in the first round was number 6. Tang Sampao immediately looked around and asked, "Who's number 6? No one responded. There's no need to ask. At this moment, Su Li smiled wryly and said, "I'm number 6. In the first round, Su Li and Ling Juyin were matched up against each other. At this moment, even Duan Lingtian was stunned. He did not expect Su Li and Ling Juyin would meet in the first round of the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses. "Duan Lingtian, what about you? We won't meet, right?" Tang Sampao asked Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian did not say anything. Instead, he opened his jade slip in front of Tang Sampao. The number 12 was written on it. "It seems like we're not fated to meet," Tang Sampao said as he opened the jade slip in his hand. It had the word 26 written on it. It was the number 26 of that person. Now, apart from number 1 and number 2, the rest of you can return to the spectator seats. Su Konghai's loud and clear voice rang in the air. Duan Lingtian and the others immediately left. Another group of people also left with them. Only 2 people were left in the arena. When they left, Duan Lingtian, and the others instinctively turned to look, and saw one of the two people was Zhong Guiyu. Zhong Guiyu, a sexless cultivator, had displayed the strength of a 5-star god of war. He had claimed to be Su Yasi's junior brother in front of Duan Lingtian. As for the other person, he had only displayed the strength of a 4-star god of war. Not long after Duan Lingtian and the others returned to the spectator seats and sat down, the 4-star god of war tactfully admitted defeat. Zhong Guiyu won without a fight and obtained the first victory in the final round of the Devata Realms Battle of the Geniuses. Number 2, Zhong Guiyu wins the first round. As Su Konghai announced, he continued to say, "Now number 3 and number 4 will enter the arena." This time, the two people who entered the arena weren't one of the 8 5-star gods of war. They were two people who had previously displayed the strength of a peak 4-star god of war. One of them was even the target of Duan Lingtian's attention. Hong Yuan. He had easily defeated Su Li previously. Su Li felt Hong Yuan had concealed his strength and was most likely a 5-star god of war. Duan Lingtian, on the other hand, suspected that he or Sima Rue was the title temple's trump card. Hong Yuan. Perhaps because of this, Duan Lingtian's eyes were fixed on Hong Yuan and the other person when they entered the arena. Hong Yuan is a young genius nurtured by the title temple. This time, his opponent is a sexless cultivator whose strength is at the peak of the 4-star god of war. Many pairs of eyes were focused on the arena. Both of them have something in common. Before this, the strongest opponent they faced was an ordinary 4-star god of war. In other words, one of them might have the strength of a 5-star god of war. However, he hasn't been forced to use his strength. Naturally, it's also possible that both of them are 5-star gods of war. It's also possible that both of them aren't 5-star gods of war. Regardless, we'll find out soon enough. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Hong Yuan and his opponent began to fight. Then, just as Su Li had guessed, Hong Yuan's strength was still not at full strength. In the battle with his current opponent, it didn't take long for him to display the strength of a 5-star war god and defeat his opponent in one move. This was the first time Hong Yuan had displayed the strength of a 5-star god of war in a Devata Realms Battle of Geniuses. Su Konghai was not surprised by this. It was obvious he knew Hong Yuan was a 5-star god of war. After all, Hong Yuan was a young genius nurtured by the title temple. As the vice palace master of the title temple's main palace, it was impossible for him not to know about this. As expected, Duan Lingtian's eyes glinted. At the same time, he felt the identity of the title temple's trump card was even more mysterious. After all, until now, Hong Yuan and Sima Rue's strength were about the same. It was hard to tell who was stronger. Number 3, Hong Yuan wins the second battle. As Su Konghai announced, he signaled for number 5 and number 6 to enter the arena. Number 5 and number 6 were none other than Su Li and Ling Jueyan. It's Su Li and Ling Jueyan. Heavens! Isn't their luck too bad? In everyone's eyes, Su Li and Ling Jueyan were friends, but now in the last round, they were facing each other for the first time. Will Su Li admit defeat? Many people thought so. After all, both of them were not only friends, but there was a huge gap in their strength as well. However, Su Li didn't admit defeat. He still exchanged blows with Ling Jueyan. Of course, just like what most people thought, Su Li lost without any suspense. Moreover, he was defeated within 3 moves. And this was because Ling Jueyan didn't use his full strength from the start. Otherwise, Su Li wouldn't have been able to withstand even one move. Number 5, Ling Jueyan wins the third battle. Su Konghai's voice sounded again. Now number 7 and number 8 enter the arena. These two people were 4-star war gods. In the end, the top 4-star war god won the battle. The other person was eliminated. Moreover, this person might still be a 5-star war god. After all, his opponent wasn't strong. Even if he was a 5-star war god, he wouldn't be able to force him to use his full strength. After number 7 and number 8, it was number 9 and number 10. Still, no 5-star war god entered the arena. These two people were both top 4-star war gods. In the end, they fought for half a day before a winner was determined. Moreover, it was only by a single thought. Otherwise, it would be hard to say who would win. Number 11, Number 12. As the battle between Number 9 and Number 10 ended, Duan Lingtian's number was finally announced. He was Number 12. Number 11 was a top 4-star war god. He was another young genius nurtured by the Tidal Temple. Chapter 3503. Duan Lingtian stood in the middle of the field and stared at the young prodigy from the Tidal Temple. This young prodigy was a top 4-star god of war. He was one of the more outstanding young prodigies from the Tidal Temple. Of course, he was not as good as Hong Yuan and Nangong Rui. Whether it was Hong Yuan or Nangong Rui, they had displayed the strength of a 5-star god of war so far. As for the young prodigy in front of him, Duan Lingtian did not think he had the strength of a 5-star god of war. This was because he had a hard time fighting against the other 4-star god of war. Even if he tried to hide it, Duan Lingtian was still observing the young prodigies from the Tidal Temple. Roar! The young prodigy from the Tidal Temple knew that he was no match for Duan Lingtian. However, he still used all his strength and unleashed his strongest attack. He even let out a roar that sounded like the roar of a wild beast from the depths of his throat. Boom! Boom! The young prodigy from the Tidal Temple specialized in the law of water. As soon as he appeared, the area around him seemed to have turned into an ocean. Waves of rolling enormous waves that contained extremely terrifying killing intent swept towards Duan Lingtian. These huge waves were different from ordinary waves. Ordinary waves would come one after another. However, these huge waves would occasionally turn into whirlpools that seemed to be able to swallow everything under the sea. The young prodigy from the Tidal Temple was so desperate because he had received a message asking him to unleash all his strength to see if he could force Duan Lingtian to use his other trump cards. He wanted to see if Duan Lingtian had any other trump cards. However, for a genius from the Tidal Temple, a top 4-star god of war, it would not be easy for him to force Duan Lingtian, who was currently a 5-star god of war, to reveal his trump card, even if he unleashed his full strength. Whoosh! 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 Under everyone's watchful eyes, Duan Lingtian stood in the air. His purple robe fluttered in the wind. His expression was as calm as ever. There was no joy or sorrow in his eyes. Even when the surrounding waves swept over and formed a turbulent whirlpool, the expression on his face did not change in the slightest. When the vast wave came into contact with a 5-meter radius of Duan Lingtian, a shocking scene appeared. It was as though Duan Lingtian had transformed into a huge whale in the depths of the sea. It was as though a whale had opened its mouth, and the huge waves were swallowed by it. No matter how many waves came, they would be swallowed by the waves. In the end, the young prodigy from the Tidal Temple's face. He knew that he would not be able to withstand such a powerful attack. However, Duan Lingtian merely stood there and cast one of the 4 Tao of heaven and earth, the Tao of control. He controlled the space and allowed the space to absorb his attack. Of the sky was, "Admit defeat." A voice rang in the Tidal Temple's young prodigy's ears again. It was none other than the person who had asked him to test Duan Lingtian's strength through voice transmission. This person was none other than the Vice Palace Master of the Tidal Temple, Su Konghai. He was the one who presided over the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses. The gap between them was too big. Perhaps this battle should not have started in the first place. At this moment, Su Konghai's thoughts ran wild. At the same time, Su Konghai's eyes that were trained on Duan Lingtian turned even more unfathomable. A hint of uncontrollable greed could be seen in his eyes. "I admit defeat." The young prodigy who received Su Konghai's order immediately admitted defeat. Number 12, Duan Lingtian wins. Su Konghai's voice rang in the air. Following that, Duan Lingtian and the young prodigy from the Tidal Temple left the arena. Number 13 and number 14 entered the arena. When the 2 young prodigies entered the arena, not many people paid attention to them. Most people's attention was focused on Duan Lingtian. What do you think Duan Lingtian's rank will be? He's too young. It'll be good if he can rank in the top 5. It's impossible for him to rank in the top 3. I agree. Although most of them were shocked by Duan Ling Tian's strength due to his young age, they still felt he was destined to be a stepping stone in the battle of the geniuses in the Devata realms. Duan Ling Tian naturally heard these whispers. However, he did not care. Throughout his journey, he had been looked down upon by so many people that he could not even remember how many times he had been looked down upon. The best way to respond to these people was to show them how ignorant they were with his actions. Duan Ling Tian, your ability to control is terrifying. As soon as Duan Ling Tian returned, Zhang Tian you could not help but exclaim in surprise. I feel that although the young genius nurtured by the Tidal Temple is a peak 4-star god of war, he's like a 3-year-old child compared to you. No matter how much trouble he makes, you can just stand there and neutralize his attacks. Even if he tries his best, it's useless. Wang Ting and He Jianyi nodded in agreement when they heard Zhang Tianyou's words. After Duan Ling Tian, the next battle was between 2 4-star gods of war. Since one of them had won by a narrow margin, it was certain he was not a 5-star god of war. Even though he had won, it was a close call. He had suffered heavy injuries and was no longer at his peak. If he was a 5-star god of war, would he humiliate himself like that? One should know that if one was injured in such a battle, it would affect one's performance later on. No one dared to conceal their strength in such a battle, lest they fail miserably. Number 15, number 16. Unsurprisingly, the appearance of number 15 caused a commotion at the scene. Yu Dongfang, the third direct disciple of Heavenly Emperor Xianyuan, Yu Dongfang, had already displayed the strength of a 5-star god of war. He was number 15. His opponent was a lone cultivator, who had displayed the strength of a top 4-star god of war. This person, Duan Ling Tian, did not look at Yu Dongfang. His gaze landed on Yu Dongfang's opponent, the young man who had obtained the number 16 jade slip. This person was wearing a grayish-white robe. He had a medium build and an ordinary appearance. He was the kind of person who would not stand out in a crowd. Moreover, he looked a little timid. He was an introverted young man. But now, when facing Yu Dongfang, his temperament had changed. Although he still had a sense of shyness, his erratic eyes were focused. You're not my match. Yu Dongfang looked at the young man and said calmly. It was as if victory was already in his hands. Perhaps. The young man spoke. His voice was as soft as a mosquito's buzz. However, everyone present heard him clearly. If you don't admit defeat, I'll defeat you myself. As Yu Dongfang spoke, he moved like a ghost. In the blink of an eye, he was next to the young man's father. He raised his hands, and a vast amount of energy gathered. This person is destined to lose against Yu Dongfang. Yu Dongfang is too strong. Everyone felt that Yu Dongfang's opponent was going to lose. Moreover, until the moment Yu Dongfang gathered his strength, the young man did not move at all. It was as if he was scared out of his wits. However, what happened next was completely out of everyone's expectations. It was as if time had stopped. Yu Dongfang maintained his posture of raising his hand and froze in the air. Even his expression was completely in its original state, giving people a creepy feeling. It's the law of time. The law of time. At this moment, not only did many people in the spectator seats stand up, but even some heavenly emperors and high-ranking officials from the Tidal Temple sub-halls stood up in shock. The law of time was the strangest law among the 4 supreme laws. It could control time and catch people off guard. Many people even called the law of time the number 1 law in the world. This was because the law of time was too heaven-defying. How terrifying was the ability to freeze time? Of course, while the law of time was heaven-defying, it was also extremely difficult to comprehend. Even at the beginning, it would take a long time to comprehend. Many people who had comprehended the law of time would switch to other laws when they realized it was too slow. As for the law of time, if one did not comprehend it to a high level, it could only affect ordinary people. This was because the law of time could only affect people who were not strong enough to suppress them. For example, the law of time could freeze time. Unless one had fused many ultimacies together, it could not affect people who had mastered the fusion of many ultimacies and comprehended other laws. However, Yu Dongfang had been frozen in time. Yu Dongfang's strength was obvious to all. He was definitely a 5-star god of war. Someone who could use the law of time to freeze him was at least as strong as him. Otherwise, he would only be able to freeze his body for a moment. It would not be able to last for so long. Chi. Under everyone's watchful gazes, the eyes of the unprepossessing young man, who everyone had already determined to be a 5-star war god, emitted 2 gray rays of light when Yu Dongfang's body regained its mobility. Almost as soon as Yu Dongfang regained his senses, the 2 beams of gray light shot into his body. In the next moment, before Yu Dongfang could make another move, his body underwent an earth-shattering change under everyone's watchful eyes. First, Yu Dongfang's long black hair turned white in the blink of an eye. Then it turned completely white. His eyebrows turned white as well. After that, his skin started to wrinkle and age. In the blink of an eye, he had turned from a young man with a strong body into an old man who was incomparably old. It was as though he had been cursed by time. This scene caused most of the people present to subconsciously suck in a breath of cold air. The scene in front of them was too horrifying. As far as I know, someone who can control the law of time to such an extent is at least an elite 5-star god of war. A top 5-star god of war. Tang Sanpeo's voice echoed in the ears of Duan Lingtian and the others. Chapter 3504. In the blink of an eye, Yu Dongfang's transformation was shocking. It was as if 100 years had passed in the blink of an eye for an ordinary person. He had turned from a young man in his prime into an old man with 1 foot in the grave. The Edict of Time. Duan Lingtian stared at the ordinary-looking young man. He had been staring at his opponent the whole time. He had been observing this person for a long time. Every single time, not only his opponent, even the spectators felt that he would undoubtedly lose. However, every single time he would win. This was why Duan Lingtian paid attention to him. He thought this person would lose to Yu Dongfang. After all, Yu Dongfang was a 5-star god of war. He did not expect him to display the strength of a top-tier 5-star god of war. This is the Edict of Time's vicissitudes in a single thought. Those who are proficient in the Edict of Time are at least a top-tier 5-star god of war. They are almost invincible among those below 6-star gods of war. Duan Lingtian had heard his master, Feng Qingyang, mention the Edict of Time's vicissitudes in a single thought. It could make a person's body age and decline with a single thought. It was like an ordinary person turning from a young man to an old man. If an ordinary person was hit by the vicissitudes in a single thought, their lifespan would be depleted. On the other hand, an immortal's lifespan was endless, although it only affected the various parts of the body and prevented them from using their full strength. It would take a lot of effort for them to return to their original appearance. Bang! When the crowd saw Yu Dongfang turned into an old man by the young man's eyes, they were shocked. Before they could react, the young man pushed out a palm and easily sent Yu Dongfang flying away. Yu Dongfang's body was extremely old, and he couldn't gather his strength anymore. He coughed out blood all the way, and his aura was weak. In the end, Yu Dongfang heavily smashed into the ground in the distance with a thud. Yu Dongfang's body was extremely old. Yu Dongfang fainted after he landed on the ground. Third senior brother. At this moment, a figure flew out from the spectator stand. It was Yu Dongfang's junior brother Tong Tuesday. He was also the 4th true disciple of Gongsun Xianyuan, the heavenly emperor of Xianyuan. Tong too went down and carried the severely injured Yu Dongfang away. At this moment, the spectators finally regained their senses. Unsurprisingly, a series of gasps could be heard. Dark horse. This was an absolute dark horse. No one had expected that the battle between Yu Dongfang and this unprepossessing young man would end up like this. In fact, Yu Dongfang did not even have the chance to make a move. He was completely controlled by the other party with the law of time, toying with him in the palm of his hand. Of course, at this moment, no one felt that Yu Dongfang was too weak or anything. They only felt that this ordinary-looking youth was too strong, so strong that it was shocking and made their hearts tremble. Didn't this Huang Quanin use the laws of fire when he fought earlier? He's actually proficient in the laws of time. Don't you see? His attainments in the laws of time are even stronger than the laws of fire. Oh my god! This Huang Quanan, where did this monster come from? Just by relying on the law of fire, he has the strength of a peak 4-star war god. And by relying on the law of time, he has the strength of a peak 5-star war god. A top-notch 5-star war god. It can't be that you don't know that those who can control the vicissitudes in a single thought technique, without exception, are all people with the strength of a peak 5-star war god, right? This kind of person is recognized as invincible under the 6-star god of war. Invincible under the 6-star god of war? That's Huang Quanan. Naturally, he's invincible under the 6-star god of war, without a divine weapon. A divine weapon can break his time shackles. The ordinary-looking youth Huang Quanan had attracted a lot of attention earlier. However, at this moment, everyone was paying attention to him, including the vice palace master of the title temple, Su Konghai. Even he was looking at Huang Quanan with a shocked expression on his face. At the same time, Su Konghai and a group of heavenly emperors from various Devata realms sent voice transmissions to Huang Quanan in an attempt to recruit him. Naturally, there were very few people who wanted to accept Huang Quanan as a disciple since most of them knew there was nothing they could teach him. However, Huang Quanan completely ignored the voice transmissions from the crowd. Whether it was the heavenly emperors or Su Konghai, he ignored all of them. Naturally, only Huang Quanan and the group of people who had sent him voice transmissions were aware of this. Otherwise, it would have caused a huge uproar. Who was Huang Quanan? He did not even give face to the vice palace master of the title temple's main hall. At the same time, Tathagata, the palace master of the title temple's Xian Yuan Heaven sub-palace, looked at Huang Quanan with a hint of greed in his eyes. What a pity. I already have a body that I want. If there's no Duanling Tian, I'll definitely possess you. Tathagata, or to be more precise, Lord Yahiko, thought to himself as he looked at Huang Quanan. His comprehension of the law of time is not bad. However, it'll take him a lot of effort to become a god. As for Duanling Tian, with his foundation, if I possess him, I might even be able to become a supreme powerhouse in the future, let alone become a god. Unknowingly, Tathagata's gaze had shifted from Huang Quanan to Duanling Tian. Flames of greed burned in his eyes, as though he wanted nothing more than to abduct Duanling Tian and possess him in public. At this moment, the young geniuses who were watching the battle suddenly thought of something. Including Hong Yuan and Huang Quanan, there are 10 5-star gods of war in this Devata realm battle of the geniuses? 10 5-star gods of war, who were younger than 1,000 years old, would appear in the Devata realm's genius battle. This was not something that would happen every Devata realm's genius battle. For this reason, the battle of the geniuses in the Devata realms had reached a new climax in just a blink of an eye. 10 5-star gods of war. Will there be an 11th one? As more and more people left the stage, another 5-star god of war appeared. Similar to Yi Dongli, she was a woman. She was dressed in a loose gray robe and had a bamboo hat on her head. The woman was wearing a veil, and only half of her face was exposed. However, just by looking at her beautiful eyes and willowy eyebrows, one could not help but feel that she had a stunningly beautiful face. Of course, there were also a small number of people who felt that although she had a pair of beautiful eyes and eyebrows, since she was wearing a face scarf, she might have been disfigured, or the lower half of her face was extremely ugly. Regardless, not many people paid attention to her. What they were concerned about was her strength as a 5-star god of war. She had easily defeated her opponent, a powerful peak 4-star god of war. Before this battle, this woman hadn't even displayed the strength of a peak 4-star war god. She had only displayed the strength of a relatively powerful 4-star war god. Many people thought that no matter how strong she was only a peak 4-star war god. They did not expect her strength to be so shocking when she revealed her true strength. Another 5-star god of war. Moreover, it's a female 5-star god of war. This Lu Suyen is similar to Yi Dongli. I've never heard of her before. It's said that the Devata realm's battle of geniuses attracts sectless geniuses from various Devata realms. It seems like it's true. Lu Suyen is another 5-star god of war, who is less than 1,000 years old after Zhong Guiyu, Tang Sanpao, Ling Juiyan, and Yi Dongli. 11 5-star gods of war. This Devata realm's battle of geniuses is destined to go down in history. The group of young geniuses present on the scene were excited. Being able to personally witness a Devata realm's battle of geniuses that would go down in history was enough for them to brag about for the rest of their lives. Will there be a 12th 5-star god of war? Some people thought. Even Duan Lingtian could not help but think so. However, after 15 matches, no more 5-star war gods had appeared. Moreover, it could be confirmed that no more 5-star war gods would appear. Because, even if there was a 5-star war god, in this round, it would be very difficult to hide. In the end, 15 people successfully emerged as the victors of the 15 battles. Among them, there were 10 5-star gods of war. Although there were 11 5-star gods of war participating in this Devata realm's battle of geniuses, Yu Dongfang was severely injured and eliminated. It would take a long time for him to recover. Next, the 15 people who were defeated will proceed to the second round. Among the 15 people, there's one person who was severely injured. He's the only 5-star god of war among the 15 people who were defeated. Due to his strength, he can advance to the next round. Does anyone have any objections? If anyone has any objections, you can fight him after he recovers from his injuries. However, it must be a battle to the death. Su Konghai's eyes flashed as he said, I've asked the Heavenly Emperor Xianyuan through voice transmission. He said Yu Dongfang is willing to accept the battle to the death. Upon hearing Su Konghai's words, the other 14 young geniuses were rendered speechless. How could they not be willing? Yu Dongfang was a 5-star god of war. Although he was defeated by a top 5-star god of war. Why would he be afraid of them? Su Konghai nodded in satisfaction when he saw no one had any objections. Since no one has any objections, the 14 of you will proceed to the next round. The 7 people who emerge victorious will be ranked 17th to 23rd. When the 14 young geniuses were fighting for the top 7 spots, Tang Sanpao's voice rang in Duan Lingtian's ears. Duan Lingtian, do you think Suli can win? Suli was one of the 14 young geniuses who were about to enter the next round. It'll be difficult. Duan Lingtian shook his head as he looked at Suli in the distance. Although Suli was strong and had entered the top 30 in the Devata realm's battle of geniuses, it would be difficult for him to obtain a spot in the top 30. Moreover, the chances were slim. Literature Center. Chapter 3505. Although Suli had just become a 4-star god of war, and was stronger than an ordinary 4-star god of war, he was not as strong as a top 4-star god of war. It was considered a good result for him to be in the top 30 of the Devata realm's battle of geniuses. It would be difficult for him to be in the top 23. Bang! However, even if it was difficult, Suli was still fearless. He took large strides forward, and was finally defeated by the opponent he drew, a top-notch 4-star battle god. Only the other 6 battles of the other 12 people had also been decided one after another. At this moment, the top 30 of the Devata realm's battle of geniuses had been determined. Swoosh! Names appeared in the sky above the Devata realm's battle of geniuses. They were the names of the top 30 people who had made it to the final round. The first 16 people were the 11 5-star gods of war, who had defeated their opponents in the first stage of the final round of the Devata realm's battle of geniuses. They were temporarily in the top 16. The 11 5-star gods of war were ranked in the top 11. From the 17th to the 23rd place, they were the 7 people who had defeated their opponents in the second stage. As for Suli and the others, they were the 7 people who had been defeated in the second stage. The current ranking is only a temporary ranking. There is no order. Su Konghai, the vice palace master of the Tidal Temple, who was in charge of the Devata realm's battle of geniuses, said loudly, according to the rules of the Devata realm's battle of geniuses, the people ranked 21st to 30th can only challenge the person ranked 20th at most. Only those who successfully enter the top 20 can challenge the person ranked before them. Naturally, they can only challenge the person ranked 10th at most. Only those who defeat the person ranked 10th can challenge the other 9 people in the top 10. When Su Konghai spoke, everyone, including Duan Ling Tian, shifted their attention to the 30 names that had already been arranged in order. The person who was temporarily in first place was Zhong Guiyu. After Zhong Guiyu, Tang Sanpao was in second place. Duan Ling Tian was in third place. Zhou Yongqi was in fourth place. Yu Dongfang was in fifth place. Sima Rui was in sixth place. Yi Dongli was in seventh place. Hong Yuan was in eighth place. Huang Quanan was in ninth place. Lu Suyen was in 10th place. 11th place Yu Dongfang. Behind them was a group of peak 4-star war gods. Su Li's name was also at the back. Moreover, Su Li's name was quite close to the front. He was ranked 24th, second only to the 7 people who had won the second stage. Did you notice? At this time, many of the spectating young geniuses discovered some clues. No matter if it's a group of 5-star war gods or a group of 4-star war gods ranking, it's always the person who first displayed a certain level of strength that was ranked at the front. For example, among the 5-star war gods, Zhong Guiyu was the first to display the strength of a 5-star war god, so he is temporarily in first place. Then Tang Sanpao, he is the second to display the strength of a 5-star war god. Behind him is Duan Ling Tian. Through the attention of some observant people, others quickly discovered this point. Like Su Li, he was the first to display the strength of a 4-star war god among the 7 people ranked at the bottom. Thus, he was currently ranked at the top of the 7 and was temporarily ranked at the 24th place. Now the rankings are out. Su Konghai's voice sounded again. Next, the person who is temporarily ranked at the 30th place, please come out and challenge your opponent. Of course, you can only challenge the person ranked at the 20th place at the very most. After the challenge is successful, if you can maintain your ranking, you can challenge the people ranked from the 4th to the 19th place in the next round. Su Konghai said. The final stage of the Devata Realm's Battle of Geniuses could be considered as the final stage. It could also be said to be the longest stage of the final stage. In this stage, the rule was that the people ranked at the bottom had to challenge the people ranked ahead of them one by one. Of course, they could also choose not to challenge and maintain their original ranking. Under such circumstances, if no one challenged you, you would not be able to challenge anyone else. If someone successfully challenged you and pushed you to the bottom, you would have the opportunity to challenge the people in front of you. However, if the person ranked at the 30th place did not challenge him, he would be the last person ranked at the 30th place, because no one could challenge him or even replace him. The person ranked at the 30th place was the last person in the top 30 of the Devata Realm's Battle of Geniuses. Swoosh. As soon as Su Konghai finished speaking, the person ranked at the 30th place, a white-clad young man with a solemn expression, stepped into the ring and looked at Su Li as he said, I challenge the person ranked at the 24th place, Su Li. As soon as he spoke, an uproar broke out. It seems like he has given up on entering the top 20. It's obvious. If he's aiming to enter the top 20, he wouldn't have challenged those ranked below him. He must be aiming to enter the top 20. After all, the higher one's ranking is, the better the reward from the title temple will be. He's trying to pull Su Li down from the 24th place and replace him. Su Li was the first person to be challenged in the final stage of the Devata Realm's Battle of Geniuses. Facing the challenge, his expression remained calm, and he faced it calmly. In the end, Su Li barely defeated his opponent and retained his 24th place. However, he was injured in the process. Are you all right? After Su Li returned, the worry in Duan Ling Tian's eyes didn't reduce as he asked with concern. Earlier, Su Li had vomited 2 mouthfuls of blood after being hit by his opponent. It's just a minor injury. Su Li smiled faintly. Take a healing pill. I'll be fine soon. As soon as Su Li finished speaking, he consumed a healing pill and closed his eyes to heal his injuries. According to the rules of the Devata Realm's Battle of Geniuses, those who were ranked at the bottom were not allowed to challenge Suli. Suli had a chance to rest before those who were ranked at the bottom could challenge him again. If someone ranked at the 20th place, those who were ranked at the bottom would not be able to challenge him for the time being, since he would have a bye in the next round. Naturally, those who were ranked at the 20th place could challenge those who were ranked at the 19th place. This was one of the rules of the Devata Realm's Battle of Geniuses. The same rule applied to those ranked at the 10th and 9th place as well. While Suli was healing his injuries, the person ranked at the 29th place left the ring. He could not challenge Suli, and he was not ambitious enough to challenge the person ranked at the 20th place. In the end, he chose to challenge the person ranked at the 25th place. Their strength was about the same, but the person who challenged the person ranked at the 25th place won in the end. He was ranked at the 26th place instead of the 25th place. As for the 26th place, all three of them were ranked at the 28th place. Then, the people ranked at the bottom continued to challenge the 29th place. The person ranked at the 29th place challenged Suli, who had just recovered from his injuries. This time, Suli managed to hold his ground. Then, it was the 28th place, the 26th place. As for the 25th place, the person ranked at the 29th place, he did not have a chance to challenge anyone since he had already used his chance in the previous round. However, during this time, more than one person had already challenged the person ranked at the 20th place, but all of them failed. In the end, the person ranked at the 22nd place successfully challenged the person ranked at the 20th place and replaced him. The person ranked at the 20th place was ranked at the 21st place, and the person ranked at the 21st place was ranked at the 22nd place. According to the order, the person ranked at the 22nd place could challenge the person ranked at the top. However, according to the rules, the person ranked at the 20th and 21st place had just fought, so he could not challenge them. Under such circumstances, he chose to challenge the person. He could either choose not to challenge. In this situation, unless the person ranked at the bottom replaced him, he would not be able to challenge the person ranked at the top. Or he could choose to challenge the person ranked at the 19th place. If he won, he would replace him. If he lost, he would still be ranked at the 22nd place. Moreover, even if no one challenged him in the next round and replaced him, he could still continue to challenge. I challenged the person ranked at the 19th place. The new person ranked at the 22nd place was obviously someone with ambition. However, even if he was someone with ambition, if he did not have enough strength, he was destined to be useless in the end. The new person ranked at the 22nd place failed his challenge. Number 18. Because number 19 had just been challenged. When it was his turn, Su Konghai allowed number 18 to enter the arena and give number 19 a chance to rest. After number 18 finished his challenge, number 19 could enter the arena and choose his opponent. I challenged the person ranked at the 12th place. Number 18 was a top 4-star war god. He was very ambitious and challenged the 4-star war god who was ranked at the top. Obviously, he was not convinced that the other party was ranked at the top of the 4-star war gods. As for the people ranked at the top 11, they were all 5-star war gods. He knew that even if he challenged them, he would only be asking for humiliation. Therefore, he did not have the intention to challenge them. The person ranked at the 12th place was none other than Meng Fangui. Meng Fangui was the first person to display his strength as a 4-star war god in the Devata Realm's Battle of Geniuses. He was a disciple of the Dream Profound sect, a heaven-grade force in the Xian Yuan heaven. He was skilled in illusions. In fact, his strength was not comparable to a top 4-star war god. However, with the help of the Emperor-grade celestial weapon with an artifact spirit, his strength was comparable to a top 4-star war god. Meng Fangui, you're only able to come this far because you come from a good family and have an Emperor-grade celestial weapon with an artifact spirit. The person who challenged Meng Fangui was a young man in black robes. He had a devilishly handsome face. When he looked at Meng Fangui, a mocking smile appeared on his face. Do you dare to use an Emperor-grade celestial weapon to fight me, Yuan Haojuan? If you want to fight, let's fight. Meng Fanggui's face was calm and indifferent. Don't embarrass yourself with this kind of taunting without any skill. So what if I come from a good family? That's because I Meng Fangui am reincarnated. You feel free to hide in a secluded corner and envy me, Meng Fangui. The mobile version of the website. Chapter 3506. Upon hearing Meng Fanggui's words, even Duan Lingtian could not help but shake his head with a smile on his face. Those who were able to stand out in the Devata realm's battle of geniuses were extraordinary. Meng Fangui might seem like a good-for-nothing rich kid, but the fact that he was able to reach his current height despite being less than 1,000 years old was enough to show how extraordinary he was. Perhaps it had something to do with his background, but it did not matter much. In the Devata realms, there were many people who came from better backgrounds than Meng Fangui, but none of them were qualified to participate in the Devata realm's battle of geniuses. There were at least 800 people like that, if not 1,000. After all, there were 81 Devata realms in total. There were only 8 to 10 people in each Devata realm. Could it be that there were not at least 10 people in each Devata realm who came from a better background than Meng Fan? You're seeking death. Yuan Haojuan, a young genius and a top 4-star god of war, had intended to provoke Meng Fangui into not using his emperor-grade celestial weapon with an artifact spirit. However, not only did he fail, but he was even angered by Meng Fanggui's words. When Yuan Haojuan made the first move, it was not difficult to see that he was truly enraged by Meng Fanggui's words. Unless he's a 5-star god of war, he's bound to lose. Many people thought so. Yuan Haojuan's loss of composure had put him at a disadvantage. Although he had made a move before Meng Fangui, it did not mean he could gain the upper hand by striking first. At this moment, Yuan Haojuan was no longer in his usual state. What happened next was just as everyone had expected. Even though Yuan Haojuan tried to adjust his emotions after rushing out, he was unable to completely calm down in a short period of time. When he realized this, he naturally became even more anxious. The more anxious he was, the more mistakes he made. It was a vicious cycle. In the end, in less than 10 moves, Meng Fangui defeated Yuan Haojuan with his emperor-grade celestial weapon with an artifact spirit and maintained his current ranking. Number 17. Yuan Haojuan was number 18. After his failure, it was number 17's turn to issue a challenge. However, because Meng Fangui, number 12, had just been challenged, he couldn't issue a challenge this round. Therefore, he could only choose another target. However, he didn't choose number 11 and 10, who were in front of number 12, to look for trouble. A 5-star war god wasn't someone he could fight against. He knew his own limits. In the end, he chose number 13 and successfully challenged him, replacing him. The new number 17, because number 17 succeeded in his challenge and rose to the top. A new number 17 challenged Meng Fangui after number 17. This new number 17 challenged number 12 Meng Fangui, but he still couldn't shake his opponent's position. Meng Fangui had once again maintained his ranking. Then it was number 16. Number 16 challenged the new number 13, which was the previous number 17, and failed. Number 15 challenged number 12 Meng Fangui and failed. Meng Fangui was strong to begin with, coupled with the fact that he had an emperor-grade celestial weapon with an artifact spirit. Apart from his unfortunate encounter with Zhong Guiyu in the beginning, he had been undefeated throughout his journey in the Battle of the Geniuses. At this moment, unless there was a top-tier 4-star god of war with an artifact spirit, it would be difficult to shake his position. As for the 5-star god of war, there was no 5-star god of war behind him. Number 14 challenged number 13, but he failed as well. Because number 13 was the previous number 17, he had already challenged number 17, so he could not challenge number 17. Therefore, it was now number 12 Meng Fangui's turn. Number 12. Su Konghai's gaze fell on Meng Fangui. However, Meng Fangui shook his head and said, "I forfeit." What a joke! The 11 people in front of him were all 5-star gods of war. Even if he didn't have all the 5-star gods of war, he would only embarrass himself if he challenged them. After all, he couldn't defeat a 5-star god of war with an artifact spirit. If that was the case, it would be better for him to forfeit. At least, he would not be humiliated or injured. Nobody was surprised by Meng Fanggui's forfeit. In fact, they found it understandable. After all, the gap between a 4-star god of war and a 5-star god of war was too wide. Even if Meng Fangui had an extraordinary emperor-grade celestial weapon, he would not be able to defeat a 5-star god of war. After Meng Fangui, it's time for the 5-star gods of war to compete. It's finally time. The most exciting part of the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses is about to begin. The battle between the 5-star gods of war is about to begin. To the young geniuses present on the scene, the battle between the 4-star gods of war was merely an appetizer. The battle between the 5-star gods of war would be the highlight of the Battle of the Geniuses in the Devata Realms. Duan Lingtian, Yu Dongfang is number 11. He'll be the one to challenge you. Su Li's sharp eyes saw Yu Dongfang, who was sitting in the spectator seat opposite them. Yu Dongfang was looking at them indifferently. His eyes were fixed on Duan Lingtian, as though he had some deep enmity with him. His injuries have healed so quickly? Upon hearing Su Li's words, Duan Lingtian turned to look at Yu Dongfang. As expected, Yu Dongfang was staring at him. Previously, Yu Dongfang did not even have a chance to make a move before he was defeated by Huang Quanan. Moreover, due to Huang Quanan's mastery of the law of time, Yu Dongfang had transformed from a young man into an old man with one foot in the grave. However, Yu Dongfang no longer looked like an old man. Instead, he looked like a young man. If an ordinary person was subjected to such a technique, not only would their appearance age, but their body and lifespan would also come to an end. However, Yu Dongfang was not an ordinary person. As a celestial who had endless life, he would only age temporarily, and his body would only deteriorate temporarily. As long as he consumed medicinal pills to replenish his vitality, he would be able to recover quickly. Even if he did not consume any medicinal pills, as long as he was given time, he would gradually recover. The vicissitudes of thought will affect his strength for a period of time. As long as he's given time, he'll be able to recover to his peak. Tang Sanpao said. While Duan Lingtian and Yu Dongfang were staring at each other, many people were looking at Yu Dongfang in unison. After all, Yu Dongfang was the person who was going to challenge Duan Lingtian. He was currently ranked last in the Devata Realm's Battle of Geniuses. Based on the time he displayed his strength as a 5-star god of war, he should be ranked in the top 10. However, since he had been defeated by Huang Quanan in the previous round, the Title Temple had arranged for him to be ranked last among the 5-star gods of war. Everyone present on the scene thought this was reasonable. Yu Dongfang was speechless. After all, he had indeed been defeated by Huang Quanan, who had comprehended the law of time. Yu Dongfang seems to have been staring at Duan Lingtian since the beginning. Could it be that there's a deep enmity between them? Based on Yu Dongfang's gaze, he'll most likely challenge Duan Lingtian. One was the third true disciple of the Heavenly Emperor of the Heavenly Heaven, a 5-star god of war. Duan Lingtian was the only true disciple of the Heavenly Emperor of the solitary destructive heaven. He was also a 5-star god of war. Everyone, including the heavenly emperors and high-ranking officials from the Title Temple's sub-palaces, looked at Duan Lingtian and Yu Dongfang with burning eyes. Brother Feng, I'm afraid this disciple of the Heavenly Emperor of the Xianyuan Heavenly Emperor will challenge junior nephew Duan. Ding Fu, the Heavenly Emperor of the Primeval Heaven, looked at Feng Qingyang and said with a smile, Junior nephew Duan, did you offend him in some way? I don't know. Feng Qingyang shook his head with a calm expression on his face. It seems like you're very confident in junior nephew Duan, brother Feng. Upon seeing this, Ding Fu's smile widened as he looked at the arena again. At this moment, Su Konghai's voice rang in the air, as everyone looked at him expectantly. Now let's invite Yu Dongfang, the 11th contestant, to enter the arena. This will be the prelude to the battle between the 5-star gods of war. I wonder who Yu Dongfang will challenge. It was rare for Su Konghai to speak so much. As soon as he finished speaking, a commotion broke out among the spectators. The atmosphere of the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses was at its peak. Yu Dongfang. Many people looked at the young man with burning eyes. The young man was none other than Yu Dongfang, the third true disciple of Gongsun Xianyuan, the heavenly emperor of the Xianyuan heaven. Who would Yu Dongfang challenge? Based on the current situation, it was most likely he would challenge Duan Lingtian. Indeed, Yu Dongfang's eyes were trained on Duan Lingtian as soon as he entered the arena. Xianyuan, it seems like your disciple is determined to fight Duan Lingtian. Yu Haotian sat opposite Gongsun Xianyuan, the heavenly emperor of the Jade Emperor Celestial Emperor, of the heavenly emperor of the Xianyuan Celestial Emperor. He glanced at the battle before looking at Gongsun Xianyuan, who was also looking at the battle. It's not a bad thing for a young man to suffer a little, Gongsun Xianyuan said. Oh, Yu Haotian was surprised when he heard Gongsun Xianyuan's words. Xianyuan, based on your words, you're confident in Duan Lingtian? Although Duan Lingtian was from the same hometown as him, there were many people from planet Yin Huang in the Jade Emperor heaven that he ruled. For this reason, he did not feel anything special about Duan Lingtian, who was from the same hometown as him. Compared to Gongsun Xianyuan's disciple, Yu Haotian, he felt Duan Lingtian was a stranger. If he could decide the outcome of the battle, he would rather Yu Dongfang win. Everyone had their own selfish motives. Although Yu Haotian was a heavenly emperor, he was no exception. Duan Lingtian isn't as simple as he seems, Gongsun Xianyuan said as he shook his head. Gongsun Xianyuan shook his head. His eyes flickered with uncertainty, as if he had discovered something, but he wasn't completely sure. At challenge number 3, Duan Lingtian. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Yu Dongfang finally spoke. Just as most people had expected, he challenged Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian. Chapter 3507. Duan Lingtian was the third person to display his strength as a 5-star god of war among all the young geniuses who participated in the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses. For this reason, he was temporarily ranked third in the ranking battle of the last round of the Battle of Geniuses in the Devata Realms. Zhong Guiyu and Tang Sampao, who had revealed their strength as 5-star gods of war earlier than him, were ranked third. Now, it was Yu Dongfang's turn to issue a challenge. He was also the last 5-star god of war. He directly challenged Duan Lingtian. Swoosh. Duan Lingtian's expression was calm when he heard Yu Dongfang's challenge. In just a blink of an eye, he entered the ring and faced Yu Dongfang. Duan Lingtian. Yu Dongfang stared at Duan Lingtian as his eyes gleamed brightly. I've been waiting for this moment. I, Yu Dongfang, will defeat you in front of everyone today, because I, Yu Dongfang, can't stand some of your actions. All right. Duan Lingtian merely nodded indifferently when he heard Yu Dongfang's challenge. Make your move. Nobody expected Duan Lingtian to challenge Yu Dongfang as soon as he opened his mouth. It was as though he was not interested in chatting with Yu Dongfang at all. The young geniuses were happy to see this. There's no need to waste time if you're going to fight. Yu Dongfang, make your move. Defeat Duan Lingtian and fulfill your promise. Yu Dongfang is so boastful. Will he fail miserably in the end? I don't think so. Yu Dongfang is more than 300 years older than Duan Lingtian. Moreover, he's the most outstanding disciple under Gongsun Xianyuan, the heavenly emperor of the Xianyuan heaven. He's widely acknowledged as a peerless prodigy in the Xianyuan heaven. Duan Lingtian is not bad as well. He's only slightly over 600 years old. In the solitary destructive heaven, it's hard to find another person who's a match for him under 1,000 years old. While Yu Dongfang and Duan Lingtian were facing each other, the young geniuses began to whisper among themselves. The topic of discussion was always Duan Lingtian and Yu Dongfang. Some of them had confidence in Yu Dongfang. Some of them thought Duan Lingtian had a chance of winning as well. At this moment, Duan Lingtian was no longer like before the Devata Realm's Genius Battle. He had proven himself with his strength in the Devata Realm's Genius Battle. So what if he was young? he could still rank in the top 30 in the Devata realm's Battle of the Geniuses. His strength was comparable to a 5-star god of war. Duan Lingtian. Yudongfang said. Yudongfang's use. Faced with Duan Lingtian's nonchalance, Yudongfang felt as though he was inferior to Duan Lingtian. He was instantly enraged, and his eyes gleamed coldly. Swoosh! A loud explosion rang in the air as a golden ball of light that looked like a thunderbolt appeared behind Yudongfang. It seemed as though it could light up heaven and earth. Bursts of light sprinkled on the bodies of the people present. It was like the scorching sun in the sky pouring down in torrents. At this moment, Yudongfang looked like the son of the sun. A dazzling sword-shaped mark could be seen between his eyebrows. It was so dazzling that people did not dare to look at it directly. Swoosh! Under everyone's watchful eyes, a golden sword ray shot out from between Yudongfang's eyebrows. It seemed as though it could annihilate everything. Everything in the surroundings paled in comparison as it shot toward Duan Lingtian. However, Duan Lingtian remained motionless in the face of Yudongfang's probing attack. When the swordlight approached, the path of control appeared. Space distorted and folded, forming a rapid spatial vortex that sucked in the swordlight, causing it to disappear without a trace. Use your strongest move. Duan Lingtian glanced at Yudongfang indifferently before he said, "Otherwise, I'm afraid you won't be able to block even one of my moves." What did Yudongfang mean? At this moment, Duan Lingtian's words were heart-wrenching to Yudongfang. Although Yudongfang appeared to be calm on the surface, the coldness in his eyes had deepened. It was as if everything he looked at would be frozen. As expected of the only true disciple of the heavenly emperor of the solitary destructive heaven. "You're really confident," Yudongfang said. "Since that's the case, I'll do as you wish. Let's settle this with one move." As soon as Yudongfang finished speaking, thousands of golden sword rays shot out from the sun-like light behind him. It was like a rain of swords as it shot toward Duan Lingtian. Whoosh! 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 After the thousands of sword rays shot out, more and more sword rays shot out from the golden ball of light. It was as though the golden ball of light contained endless sword rays. However, Duan Lingtian remained indifferent in the face of Yudongfang's sword rays. His Tao of control was like a bottomless pit, as it devoured all of Yudongfang's attacks. It devoured as many sword rays as it came. "It seems like my first attack won't be able to break through your Tao of control," Yudongfang said. Yudongfang's voice sounded. His tone was sharp and high-spirited, but there was no trace of panic in it. "If that's the case, I'll break through your way of control first, and show you the way of swordsmanship that my master passed down to me." As soon as Yudongfang finished speaking, more and more sword rays shot out from the sun-like light behind him. This was because none of the sword rays were destroyed by Duan Lingtian's spatial energy anymore. Whoosh! 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 In just a blink of an eye, the arena in the Devata realm had turned into a sea of golden sword rays under everyone's watchful eyes. Yudongfang's law of metal and various fused profundities were also fully displayed. Apart from the law of metal, there was also a mysterious energy that was fused with the sword rays that shone brilliantly. "Sword Tao." Duan Lingtian smiled faintly. "If I'm not mistaken, this isn't a sword Tao at all. It's only a rudimentary form of a sword Tao." He had used his master Feng Qingyang's destruction, sword Tao as a foundation to comprehend the space sword Tao. Therefore, he was very familiar with the progress of the sword Tao. For this reason, he could tell Yudongfang had only comprehended the rudimentary form of the sword Tao, and had yet to master it. However, if the rudimentary form of the sword Tao was compatible with the profundities of a law, it would still be able to unleash shocking power. Although Yudongfang's attack was still brewing, it still gave Duan Lingtian some pressure. Naturally, it was only a little pressure. This little bit of pressure did not even cause Duan Lingtian's expression to change. "So what if it's just a rudimentary form of the sword Tao? I can still defeat you, someone who has mastered the sword Tao." Yudongfang smiled coldly. Then, the tens of thousands of sword rays that filled the sky quickly gathered together, and transformed into a huge golden net that surrounded Duan Tian and rapidly closed in on him. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The sound of sword whistling rang in the air. Under the watchful eyes of the others, the net of sword rays that surrounded Duan Tian rapidly tightened. It seemed like it would not take long before Duan Tian was trapped. Swoosh, swoosh. The sword rays that gathered from all directions gathered together as they neared Duan Tian. In the end, it seemed as though Duan Tian was trapped in a huge golden ball of light. Duan Tian, this is the strongest attack that I can unleash at the moment. Even if a top 5-star war god is hit by this attack, I am confident that I can severely injure or even defeat him. Yu Dongfang's voice rang out again. And now, you have already been hit. Once this was said, the entire crowd was in an uproar. Yu Dongfang's attack was shocking and seemed to shake the heavens and earth. Many people felt that his attack was not something that an ordinary 5-star war god could unleash. It was too terrifying. Even the 5-star war gods who were watching from the side could not help but become serious when they saw Yu Dongfang's attack. Duan Tian has been hit. If Yu Dongfang was not bluffing about the power of his attack, he should have won. A top 5-star war god is going to be severely injured and defeated? With such an attack, even though Duan Tian's Tao of control is profound, I'm afraid that he won't be able to block this attack. After all, he has only just mastered the Tao of control. Is Duan Tian going to lose? Now, even the people who were originally full of confidence in Duan Tian began to waver. They stared at Yu Dongfang carefully, trying to see if he was lying or boasting. However, the result disappointed them. Yu Dongfang really did not seem to be lying. Boom, 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 boom. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the golden ball of light that enveloped Duan Tian exploded. A terrifying power exploded, as if it was going to destroy the heavens and earth. If not for Su Konghai's timely intervention and suppressing the aftermath of the power, the young geniuses who were relatively close to it would have been injured. The golden ball of light that exploded emitted a dazzling light that made the eyes of the crowd hurt. After a while, they were able to look inside with great effort. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, there was not a single trace of the golden ball of light that exploded. Duan Tian was killed by the explosion? Was he blown to smithereens? Just as many people saw that there was no one and thought that Duan Tian had been completely destroyed by Yu Dongfang's attack, Yu Dongfang's brows furrowed. Even if this attack of his could kill Duan Tian, it would not be able to leave no trace behind. Now, not only was there not a single scrap of Duan Tian's robe in the air, there was not even a trace of blood. Not even a trace of blood. There was also no storage ring. Many people felt that Yu Dongfang's attack just now was enough to destroy everything about Duan Tian, including his storage ring. However, Yu Dongfang was very clear that he did not have the ability to do so. Duan Tian is not dead. He's there. Just as Yu Dongfang's heart sank and all the nerves in his body tensed up, a cry of surprise sounded in his ears. Then, numerous gazes gathered above his head. Chapter 3508. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Duan Tian appeared above Yu Dongfang's head, stepping on a gray sword. The sword looked very strange. As the sword flashed around it, the space around it twisted and folded, as if it could draw upon the power of space. Chi! Suddenly, a sword ray shot out, and a crack appeared in space. It was clearly visible and ferocious. How did you escape? Yu Dongfang looked at Duan Tian with an ugly expression, his eyes filled with shock and disbelief. His technique had trapped Duan Tian like an inescapable net. It had even shaken space and prevented Duan Tian from teleporting. But now Duan Tian had appeared outside. Was it teleportation? Or was it some other technique? Amazing! In the spectator seats, some young geniuses who saw Duan Tian appear outside and completely avoid Yu Dongfang's technique exclaimed from the bottom of their hearts. There were also some young geniuses who didn't see through the trick, but when they saw this scene, they felt that it was natural for Duan Tian to teleport out because he was skilled in the laws of space. It wasn't until Duan Lingtian spoke that they realized how naive they were. Your technique is not bad. It affects space and restricts space so that I can't teleport. Duan Lingtian stood in the void and looked indifferently at Yu Dongfang. If I hadn't mastered the space sword Dao, I wouldn't have been able to escape just now. I would have had to take your blow head-on. Space sword Dao? Yu Dongfang's expression darkened. He hadn't expected that he wouldn't be able to restrain Duan Lingtian's space sword Dao even though he'd restricted space and prevented Duan Lingtian from teleporting. The space sword Dao not only contains the laws of space, but also the great Dao of the sword. Duan Lingtian said indifferently, "You think I can't use the teleportation profundity because of your spatial restriction. However, you don't know I can use my sword Dao to break your spatial restriction before using the teleportation profundity. You actually used a single move to determine the victor? You've already made your move just now. Now it's my turn." As Duan Lingtian's voice fell, Yu Dongfang's expression changed drastically. At the same time, the golden light on his body surged. In the blink of an eye, he seemed to have turned into a golden man. The scorching sun behind him had also completely merged into his body. Around his body, tens of thousands of golden sword rays shuttled back and forth. From afar, it looked like a layer of terrifying defense, surrounded by all kinds of defensive talismans. Obviously, Yu Dongfang was doing his best to stop Duan Lingtian's next move. Duan Lingtian is going to make a move? The scene in front of them caused the originally lively audience seats to become deathly silent. Numerous gazes landed on the arena one after another, looking at the purple-clothed young man who had an indifferent and carefree face. Unlike the purple-robed young man's indifference, Yu Dongfang's entire body was glowing with a golden light. It was as if a god had descended upon the world, illuminating all the darkness and making it impossible for the darkness to hide. In the next moment, Duan Lingtian made his move. He did not make a big move as everyone had expected. He raised his hand and casually slapped down on Yu Dongfang. Bang! As his palm landed, there was a crisp sound. At the place where his palm landed, the void vibrated, then folded and twisted. Many clearly visible sword rays tore through the air and fell like shadows. These sword rays seemed to have become one with the void. They followed the path of the void's distortion, which was extremely strange. If one did not look closely, it would be difficult to see the traces of these sword rays. It hit. Under everyone's gaze, Duan Lingtian's move finally landed on Yu Dongfang, who had been prepared for it. The golden light on Yu Dongfang's body surged at this moment. At the same time, the tens of thousands of sword rays around him converged, forming a solid barrier on the surface of his body that could block all external attacks. There were no fluctuations, no intense collision as everyone had expected. Puchi, puchi, a soft sound was heard, which was extremely strange. The golden light on Yu Dongfang's body was as strong as before, but Duan Lingtian's attack, the sword rays that swept through the void, seemed to ignore all of Yu Dongfang's defensive power. They easily passed through without triggering the defensive power. It was as if they were Yu Dongfang's own power, so they did not encounter any resistance. Under everyone's gaze, Yu Dongfang stood rooted to the ground, dumbfounded. He seemed to have lost his mind. The golden light on his body also gradually dissipated. The dazzling golden sword light gradually merged into his body and completely disappeared. In the next moment, Yu Dongfang's figure appeared. Hiss! The moment Yu Dongfang's figure appeared, many of the onlookers gasped in unison. Their eyes were filled with horror and shock. When they looked at Duan Lingtian again, their faces were filled with horror, as if they were looking at a ferocious beast. At this moment, Yu Dongfang's figure was covered in blood from head to toe. It was as if he was dyed in blood, and it looked like specks of red roses were sprinkling on the ground. As long as one looked carefully, it was not difficult to see that there were fine sword scars all over Yu Dongfang's body, including his face. There were many sword scars. If one looked deeper, Yu Dongfang would have died without a doubt. Yu Dongfang was stunned for a moment before he circulated his celestial origin energy to heal his injuries in front of everyone. Although there were many injuries, They were only superficial and healed in a short while. After his injuries were healed, Yu Dongfang changed into a new robe in front of everyone. When he looked at Duan Lingtian again, he was no longer as overbearing as before. Instead, his gaze was filled with complicated emotions. He knew Duan Lingtian had shown mercy earlier. Otherwise, he would have died without a doubt. Thank you. Yu Dongfang spat out the two words with difficulty before he turned around and returned to the spectator seats. During this process, anyone who was paying attention to him could see the loneliness in his back. Yu Dongfang had been defeated. It was a complete and utter defeat. The crowd only glanced at Yu Dongfang's back before they shifted their attention to Duan Lingtian. Their eyes were filled with shock and horror. None of them had expected this young man, who was only slightly over 600 years old, to be so strong. So this is the only true disciple of the legendary Heavenly Emperor of the solitary destructive heaven. I'm afraid only someone like him is qualified to be the only true disciple of the Heavenly Emperor of the solitary destructive heaven. How terrifying! Yu Dongfang's technique is far stronger than an ordinary 5-star god of war's technique, but it was easily neutralized by Duan Lingtian. It seems like Duan Lingtian's strength is comparable to a top 5-star god of war. Otherwise, how could he have defeated Yu Dongfang so easily? Duan Lingtian's strength is only second to Huang Quanan among the 5-star gods of war, who participated in the Devata Realm's Battle of Geniuses. This time, when Duan Lingtian made his move, his strength was even stronger than before. This made everyone realize that he was still concealing his strength. He had the strength of an elite 5-star god of war, and it was enough to suppress an ordinary 5-star god of war. Yu Dongfang was considered strong among the 5-star gods of war, but he was still defeated by Duan Lingtian. Did you notice? After revealing his strength as a 5-star god of war, Yu Dongfang lost 2 consecutive battles? I think so. First he met Huang Quanan, and now he met Duan Lingtian. Why is he so unlucky? I think he's traumatized by all of this. When the atmosphere became a little heavy, some of the more optimistic people changed the topic and adjusted the atmosphere. Brother Feng, junior nephew Duan's strength is truly shocking. Is this his full strength? Ding Fu, the heavenly emperor of the primeval heaven, asked curiously as he looked at Feng Qingyang, the heavenly emperor of the solitary destructive heaven. However, he did not receive a reply from Feng Qingyang. Feng Qingyang only smiled faintly in response to Ding Fu's question. It's still not his full strength? Ding Fu was even more shocked when he saw this. Based on his understanding of Feng Qingyang, he knew Feng Qingyang was confident. How could he be so confident in his only true disciple? Duan Lingtian. I must possess him. On the other side of the small suspended island, Tathagata, also known as Mi Yen, stared at Duan Lingtian with gleaming eyes. The desire in the depths of his heart grew even stronger. Apart from being amazed by Duan Lingtian's strength, his desire to possess Duan Lingtian's body grew stronger. If he did not have any scruples, he would have charged into the arena and abducted Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian, the title temple must find a way to obtain him. Even Su Konghai, the vice palace master of the title temple, who was presiding over the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses, was looking at Duan Lingtian calmly. However, he was inwardly shocked. Duan Lingtian's performance had exceeded his expectations. His mastery of the law of space and his mastery of the sword Dao was astounding. His mastery of the law of space and his mastery of the sword Dao was even more amazing. He was even able to dodge Yu Dongfang's attack. Even an ordinary 5-star god of war would not be able to dodge Yu Dongfang's attack. Duan Lingtian, I feel like you surprise me every time you make a move. Do you have any other trump cards? Tang Sanpao asked mockingly as soon as Duan Lingtian returned to the arena. Don't worry, I'll challenge you when it's my turn, Duan Lingtian said with a smile. Initially, Duan Lingtian thought Tang Sanpao would react to Duan Lingtian's words. However, Tang Sanpao merely looked at Duan Lingtian and said, I'll wait and see. At this moment, Tang Sanpao's aura seemed to have changed. He was no longer frivolous. Instead, he seemed much more serious. Number 10. Su Konghai spoke again. Only then did everyone's attention return to him. Number 10. It's Lu Xuyan. Lu Xuyan was the last 5-star god of war to display her strength in the Devata realm's battle of the geniuses. She was also a woman. Chapter 3509. A woman dressed in a loose gray robe entered the arena. She had a bamboo hat on her head, and her face was covered with a veil. She looked out of place. Perhaps this kind of attire was more suitable for a pitch-black night, rather than in broad daylight. I didn't expect there to be 2 female 5-star gods of war in the Devata realm's battle of geniuses this time. In the past, it was considered good if there was a female 5-star god of war in the Devata realm's battle of geniuses. Someone sighed as he looked at Lu Xuyan. The others agreed with his words as well. Although there were many female powerhouses in the Devata realms, and there were many female gods in the realms of gods as well, it was undeniable that women were weaker than men in terms of cultivation. This was something that had been decided since birth. Of course, the weakness mentioned here was only an overall comparison. Some female powerhouses were so talented that most men could not compare to them. Even the supreme powerhouses who stood at the pinnacle of heaven and earth had more than one female powerhouse. Who do you think Lu Xuyan will challenge? Seeing Lu Xuyan stepping onto the stage, many people became curious as to who Lu Xuyan would challenge. Naturally, Lu Xuyan would not be able to challenge Duan Lingtian, since he had just fought with Duan Lingtian. Even if he did not seem to be exhausted, he would still be able to fight without a fight. Lu Xuyan hovered in the air as she glanced at the few 5-star gods of war. Finally, she fixed her eyes on one person. I challenge Yi Dongli, who's ranked 7th. Yi Dongli was the only female 5-star god of war in the Devata realm's battle of geniuses this year. Earlier, some people had been whispering among themselves, wondering if Lu Xuyan would challenge Yi Dongli. Many people thought it was highly possible since both of them were women. Moreover, Yi Dongli was ranked ahead of Lu Xuyan. It's said that women are tigers. As expected, there can't be 2 tigers on one mountain. Tang Sampao, who was sitting behind Duan Lingtian, said as he shook his head. As for Yi Dongli, faced with Lu Xuyan's challenge, she promptly moved forward and confronted Lu Xuyan from afar. Lu Xuyan, you shouldn't have challenged me. Yi Dongli's voice was calm and straightforward. So confident. Lu Xuyan's words were very brief. Her tone was indifferent. She was not affected by Yi Dongli's confidence in the slightest. Instead, her eyes were filled with battle intent. It was as if she was itching to immediately fight Yi Dongli. Come. When Yi Dongli spoke again, her body swayed, and lotuses appeared with every step she took. Streams of green light rose from under her feet, and then spread out, displaying a flourishing vitality. Yi Dongli was skilled in the laws of wood. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Following the sound of air being torn apart, the emerald green energy surged out from Yi Dongli's body. It turned into thick and powerful green vines that whizzed toward Lu Xuyan. The vines were like ferocious pythons, opening their bloody mouths and pouncing over. The fusion profundities of the laws of wood appeared. Facing Yi Dongli's first attack, Lu Xuyan's expression was calm. Soon after, as her clothes fluttered, cyan-colored wind blades started to sweep around her body. It was as if they had formed a small tornado. Furthermore, within this small tornado, there were also wind blades that were as sharp as knives and swords. Humph! Yi Dongli coldly snorted. After that, she controlled her vines to surround Lu Xuyan. She wanted to bind Lu Xuyan and suppress her. However, Lu Xuyan was not someone who was easy to deal with. With just a thought, wind blades filled the sky and met Yi Dongli's vines head-on. Soon after, the wind blades collided with Yi Dongli's vines. Under normal circumstances, the wind blades should be able to cut through the vines easily. However, the vines formed by Yi Dongli's laws of wood and celestial origin energy were not ordinary vines. No matter how the wind blades collided with them, they only left some scratches on the vines. Condense! Lu Xuyan's indifferent voice resounded through the air. Soon after, the crowd saw that as Lu Xuyan's voice faded, The numerous sharp wind blades that filled the sky condensed into a gigantic wind blade that flew towards the incoming vines. Wung! The gigantic wind blade slashed through the air, causing the air to stagnate for a moment. Then, it cut through the vines that were in the lead, and continued to attack the remaining vines. Whoosh! Whoosh! Just as the wind blade was about to reach the vines, the crowd saw a dark green light flowing from Yi Dongli's body into the vines that were not cut through. In an instant, the vines seemed to be covered in a layer of dark green clothing. There were also sharp thorns that flickered with cold light, giving off a sharp and tough feeling. Wung! Lu Xiyan swung the gigantic wind blade again. When it landed on the vines, it produced a series of ear-piercing and crisp sounds. At the same time, sparks flew from the point of collision. It was as though two iron weapons were colliding violently. You have some skills, Lu Xiyan exclaimed in surprise. Then she made her move. Her body merged with the wind and whistled as she charged forward. Whoosh! 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 At this moment, in the eyes of those who were not even five-star gods of war, it was as though Lu Xiyan had disappeared into thin air. They could only hear the whistling of the wind when she moved. Even the five-star gods of war could only see a series of afterimages. Fast! Too fast! Many people cried out in surprise. Whoosh! 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 Just when everyone thought that Yi Dongli would be unable to hit Lu Xiyan and would fall into a passive state, the vines that were originally attacking Lu Xiyan retracted. In the blink of an eye, they had surrounded Yi Dongli and formed a cage made of vines. Although it appeared as though Yi Dongli was trapped within the cage, it was actually an indestructible defense. The dark green skin of the vines and the sharp thorns on the skin were still flickering with an ice-cold luster. Clang! 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 Lu Xiyan rushed over, as if she had turned into wind. Bursts of powerful energy whizzed out and landed on the cage made ear-piercing sounds. However, they were unable to break through the cage's defense. You are very strong. If I don't use an immortal weapon, it will be difficult for me to defeat you. Yi Dongli, who was in the cage, stared at Lu Xiyan outside and slowly spoke. You're not the only one who has an immortal weapon. Lu Xiyan was not to be outdone. At the same time, she raised her hand, and a scarlet 3-foot-long sword appeared in her hand. As she swung the sword, a scarlet red liquid seemed to be flowing on the surface of the sword. The tip of the sword was sharp, and it shone with a terrifying light. Naturally, it was an emperor-grade celestial weapon. My celestial weapon is different from your celestial weapon. As Yi Dongli spoke again, a dark green whip appeared in her hand. The whip was 5 meters long, and as it danced, it was like a venomous python constantly wriggling its body. Following that, Yi Dongli's eyes narrowed and her hand trembled. Then an image appeared from the whip. Surprisingly, it was an image that resembled a python. After it appeared, it stared at Lu Xiyan coldly. Weapon spirit! Lu Xiyan's expression changed drastically. She did not expect Yi Dongli's emperor-grade celestial weapon to possess a weapon spirit. Heavens! The onlookers were shocked as well. None of them expected Yi Dongli to possess an emperor-grade celestial weapon with a weapon spirit. Up until now, only a few emperor-grade celestial weapons had appeared in the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses. Most of the emperor-grade celestial weapons had appeared in the hands of young geniuses with prominent backgrounds. If it was not for the Devata Realm's Battle of the Geniuses, they would not have heard of Yi Dongli at all. However, since she possessed an emperor-grade celestial weapon with a weapon spirit, it was clear she had an extraordinary background. Even if she was a seckless cultivator who lived in seclusion, there was no doubt she had an extraordinary senior backing her up. After all, it was not easy to obtain an emperor-grade celestial weapon with a weapon spirit. It was as difficult as obtaining a Devata artifact. Naturally, the Devata artifact referred to the Devata artifact without a weapon spirit. Even if it was a primitive Devata artifact, a Devata artifact with a weapon spirit could not be compared to an emperor-grade celestial weapon with a weapon spirit. The weapon spirit of an emperor-grade celestial weapon was forcibly refined from a foreign being. On the other hand, the weapon spirit of a Devata artifact was naturally born. Naturally, some Devata artifact's weapon spirit was transferred from another Devata artifact's weapon spirit. For example, Huang the sword spirit of Duan Lingtian's prominent Devata artifact, the Seven Orifices exquisite sword. In the past, Huang was the weapon spirit of Ling Juyan's sister's prominent Devata artifact. Her master is a god. It's only natural for her to possess an emperor-grade celestial weapon. After all, Tang Sanpao had told Duan Lingtian and the others that Yi Dongli's master was a god. Therefore, they were not surprised to see Yi Dongli taking out an emperor-grade celestial weapon. In fact, they felt it was only natural for her to possess an emperor-grade celestial weapon. For celestials, an emperor-grade celestial weapon with a weapon spirit was extremely precious. However, it was nothing to a god. In fact, as long as a god wanted to, even if he was not a celestial weapon craftsman, it would be easy for him to refine an emperor-grade celestial weapon, using the divine flame condensed from his divine energy. He could even capture a powerful being and make it the weapon spirit of the emperor-grade celestial weapon. Unless Lu Suyen is concealing her true strength. Otherwise, there's no doubt about the outcome of this battle. Su Li said. What happened next was just as Su Li had expected. After Yi Dongli took out her emperor-grade celestial weapon, Yi Dongli quickly gained the upper hand and defeated Lu Suyen. In fact, Lu Suyen's strength was on par with Yi Dongli even without using her celestial weapon. However, Yi Dongli still managed to defeat Lu Suyen with her celestial weapon. If I had such a celestial weapon, I wouldn't have lost to you. Although Lu Suyen was defeated, a hint of unwillingness could be seen in her eyes. Thank you for letting me win. Yi Dongli smiled faintly before she turned around and returned to her seat. Another battle between the five-star gods of war had ended. 9th place Huang Quanan. Soon after, Su Konghai's voice rang in the air. Literature Center. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.